Chapter 1. Swindler, Swindler. Great Swindler. An enraged roar can be heard, and the sound of footsteps on a bluestone pavement by someone escaping could be heard. Zhong Xian stretches out his both hands helpless. I am not a swindler, I am a teacher of the academy. I only want to make you my student. Besides that, do you have to add a great while saying that I am a swindler? You make it sound as though I am some unpardonable criminal. After he finishes his muttering, he recalls the words of the director. This is the 17th one already. If I still fail to find a student today, I would have to pack up and leave tomorrow. Zhong Xian isn't a person from this world, but an ordinary librarian of a high school. He only remembers the blazing flames, and then there is no more then. When he woke up, he was already in this world. This world is just like the ones depicted in novels. The path of martial arts is respected and the strong reigns. Initially, he thought that after traversing, he would become a useless talent and end up rejected by his fiancée. Afterward, he would strike back, slapping them in their face, and his life would proceed smoothly from then on. Looks like he had overthought it. After arriving here, he realized that he isn't a student but a teacher. The most pathetic teacher in the entire academy. The lectures of other people are always overflowing with people, that many people who find themselves without seats. On the other hand, there isn't a single person in his class. It was difficult for him to rope in a few students, but they ended up labeling him as a swindler and escape. As for the reason, ignoring the fact that the fellow whose body got took over by him was the weakest teacher in the entire campus and his inability to pick out talents, the crux of it all is that he even misguided a student, causing his cultivation to go berserk. This was just like having a dead patient under your record. His reputation went down and he was despised by everyone else. Even the new students chose to stay away from him, afraid that they would end up in the same situation if they were to fall into his clutches. A bad track record and his lack of students caused him to be ranked as the first from the bottom in the entire academy for the teacher qualification examination last year. He even got the first and only 0 marks in the entire history of the academy. Depressed, he used alcohol to drown his sorrows. In the end, just as he wished, he died, providing an opportunity for Zhong Xian to leap over. At the start of a new term, the academy issued an ultimatum to him. If he were to be unable to recruit a single student to his lessons by this year, his qualifications as a teacher would be revoked. Today, there were already 17 new students who passed by his classroom. In the end, the moment they heard his name, every one of them ran away, as though a young lady meeting a strange uncle, running as far as their feet could take them. Looks like I have to look for a way to coax one of them. As he is still thinking about how he should rope someone in, he sees the head of a girl with a dazed expression at the entrance. May I ask if this is the classroom of teacher Lu Zun? She has a cute and elegant appearance, not to mention her sweet voice. Teacher Lu Zun is the academy's star teacher. His lessons are always packed and innumerable people chose to come to the academy due to his fame. I will take her. Seeing someone walking into his trap, Zhong Xian's eyes light up. Recalling all kinds of methods to act cool from his previous life, he sits quietly on his chair and poses like an enlightened expert. You want to become his student? The young girl nods her head furiously as admiration appears in her pitch-black pupils. I have heard that teacher Lu Zun is the most incredible teacher in Hongtian Academy. All of the students he taught are extraordinary, and joining his class is an honor in itself. Rumors may not reflect the truth. Teachers are just like shoes. What is important is whether it fits or not. No matter how well he lectures, if the theories are not suited to the skills you are practicing, not only will you find it hard to advance, your strength might even regress. Even if a teacher isn't well known, if his theories harmonize with yours, you can still improve swiftly and your cultivation will rise exponentially. Is that so? I have also heard my elder brother saying such words before. The young girl ponders for a moment, uncertainty appearing in her beautiful eyes. However, I don't know what kind of lessons would suit me. Seeing that she is on the hook, Zhong Xian's eyes light up. He hesitates for a moment as great sages like Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels flashes through one after another in his mind. He feigns a look of difficulty and says, our meeting could be considered as destiny as well. How about this? I am also a teacher of this academy. I will help you take a look at your bones. talents, and personality and recommend a suitable teacher for you. Then I will trouble you, mister. She didn't expect that a teacher she met so casually would be so accommodating. The girl immediately nods her excitedly. Display your cultivation first. Zhongxian's eyes are half open, putting on a look as though this doesn't bother him in any way. Yes. Who? In a short moment, the entire room whistles from the shockwave of her punch. Wave after wave of spiritual energy swims around the body of the girl. For her spiritual energy to gather instead of dispersing, not to mention powerful but hidden, this shows that she has a great foundation. All right, I can tell that you have been training diligently and arduously. Your foundations are solid and your talent is top-notch. You are a hard-to-come-by genius. After she finishes a punching routine, Zhongxian nods his head in satisfaction. He is imitating the fortune tellers from Earth. His words are slippery with a great range of interpretation. The ones listening are unable to find a flaw with his words and instead, they will be shocked by how accurate his comments are. Especially the strength on your legs, they are just like a coiling dragon. Every movement is just like the raging waters, full of strength. As long as you were to train hard in the future, you would surely have a bright future. Teacher, my leg is injured. The physician said that it is as good as crippled. The girl interrupts his monologue with a look of suspicion in his eyes. Injured. Zhongxian's face turns red. However, he is thick-skinned, so others can't really tell. He continues to bullshit. Do you think that I can't tell? I knew it from the moment you exerted your strength. The reason why I said it is because through destruction will there be rebirth. Although your leg is injured, you were unexpectedly blessed with an opportunity that no one else expected. As long as you grasp it properly, your legwork will become your greatest strength. Others can only look on with envy. Anyway, he is just coaxing her. If he can convince her with bullshit, he will bullshit. The important thing is to get a disciple over to him first. Opportunity? Teacher, what kind of opportunity is it? The girl's eyes lit up. After her leg was injured, she had always felt that she was inferior to others, causing her to have low self-esteem. She didn't expect to stumble on a fortune due to such a mishap. This opportunity can allow you to soar to the top in one go. It won't be difficult for you to become the top of the freshmen. After all, your talents are extraordinary, a genius that has yet to appear in history. However, Zhongxian's words go on and on. All he is short of now is to take out a Buddha's palm manual. TL, Kung Fu Hustle. Upon hearing that she is a genius capable of becoming the first among the freshmen, the girl's face blushes furiously and continues questioning, however what? However. Zhongxian sighs. It is a sigh lamenting that a talent is about to be buried in dirt. The teachers who are able to spot such an opportunity don't number many in this academy, including me. There are only 3. The other 2 has already stopped accepting students from 3 years ago, so it would be difficult for me to ask them as well. Stopped accepting students. Initially, the girl had high hopes for it, but after hearing those words, her expression turns gloomy. Then, she seems to recall something suddenly and says, "They aren't accepting students, but teacher, are you accepting?" "Of course I am. Just that, you can also tell, I am indifferent to fame and fortune and I don't have much time to spare as well." A look of difficulty appears on Zhongxian's face. "If it isn't a good jade, I won't accept it easily even if our paths cross." Putong. Before he can finish his words, the girl kneels onto the floor and bows. "I know that Mr. is noble, but please accept me as your student. I will train diligently so as to not embarrass you." A surge of joy rushes into Zhongxian's heart, though his face still maintains a look of difficulty. There is destiny between us, just that. You can also tell, I like peace. As your student, I promise to never interrupt teacher unless it is an emergency. Seeing that he is a little unwilling, the girl immediately nods her head with a sincere look on her face. "I don't have many students, so the resources I have cannot be compared to other teachers. Also, you might be criticized by others." Zhongxian continues. "Is that so? I have heard that training resources are important." The girl hesitates. The amount of resources a teacher claims from the academy is related to the number of his students, their results, and numerous other factors. Without sufficient resources, it is difficult to advance ahead in one's cultivation. Cough cough, I only said that to test you. Since you are determined and sincere in acknowledging me as your master, I will reluctantly accept you. Looking at her signs of hesitation, Zhongxian interrupts her and says, your identity card. So quickly? She didn't expect that the teacher would change his face as quickly as flipping the page of a book. The girl is slightly surprised as she grasps the token passed over by Zhongxian, which represents his identity. Just as she is considering whether she should affirm the relationship, she sees the reticent teacher Zhong pull her hand over and cuts it with a sharp dagger. A drop of blood falls on the jade token. Wang. Light flashes. Ah. The girl is a little dumbfounded. Didn't the teacher say that he has to consider carefully about it? Indifferent to fame and fortune, was it? Why is his movement so fast and, even the dagger was prepared beforehand? From now on, you are my student. After the verification through blood, Zhongxian heaves a sigh of relief. Then, he continues to assume his image as an unworldly expert. What is your name? Teacher, I am called Wang Ying. Knowing that her decision cannot be revoked, the girl doesn't say anything else and nods her head. Yuan, take your identity token to claim your bedding and your books. Also, look for your lodging while you're at it. We shall begin lessons tomorrow. Meet me here. Zhongxian flicks his hand. Yes. Wang Ying nods her head and turns around to leave. Who? I have successfully coaxed one in. After confirming that she is his student, Zhongxian heaves a sigh of relief and smiles. It really isn't an easy task. If it wasn't for the techniques in acting cool that he learned from the internet, it would be hard for him to succeed today. With one student, he will be able to avoid the misfortune of being expelled. Zhongxian feels the burden on his heart disappearing. In a moment, his spirit feels much more relaxed. The obsession that was lingering in his brain disappears gradually. Rest easy, now that I am in your body, I will live properly in your stead. The previous Zhongxian died because he was unable to recruit students, so he held strong regrets in this world. Now that there is a student under him, his final obsession disappears. At this moment, Zhongxian could be considered to finally gain complete control over this body. Boom. After gaining full control of this body, Zhongxian wants to continue coaxing a few more students over. However, he suddenly feels a tremor in his head as he hears a sound of ancient bells striking in his head. The heaven and earth are callous, treating all beings like dogs. The sun sets and the moon wanes, an imperfection appears in the heaven and earth. Boom. All kind of profound adages shocked him giddy. Following which, a giant palace appears before him in his head. On it, 4 words glow brightly. Library of Heaven's Path. Opening the door, he walks in. Countless bookshelves stand tall and mighty with all kinds of books on them. The end can't be seen at a single glance. Could this be the gift pack for transcenders? A library? Damn it, I was a librarian my previous life. It can't be that I would still be the same in this world as well. The gift packs of others are old grandfathers, systems, or all kinds of overpowered items. Yet, my gift pack is a library. Zhongxian could feel the sight before him turning dark and he almost faints. Library? For what? It can't be that in my future fights when other people are throwing swords at me, I would be throwing books? Let me see what books are those. Feeling helpless, Zhongxian reaches out to grab a book from a bookshelf so as to determine the purpose of this library. However, when he stretches out, his hand passes through the bookshelf, causing him to grab thin air. Are you playing with me? Giving me a library yet preventing me from grabbing and reading any book, what exactly do you want? Zhongxian is speechless. An urge to cry overwhelms him but no tears fall out. TL note, Emperor Haotian is a supreme deity of the Han tribe who governs everything under the teachings of Confucianism. Chapter 2. Shameless. After looking around for a while longer, Zhongxian realizes that all of the books in the library are just like the moon reflected in the water, it is impossible to retrieve them from the shelves. Thus, he loses interest and his consciousness retreats from his mind. Time to eat lunch. After lunch, I will think of a way to coax another 2 more. Looking out the window, it seems to be around noon. Out of the 18 students who came by in the morning, he only managed to get one of them to join him. His acceptance rate is really quite low. He can't continue at this pace in the afternoon. No matter what, he is a transcender. If he is unable to dupe those from the ancient era, how could he proudly say that he came from a world in the age of information? Stretching his back, he walks out of the lecture hall towards the canteen. Just like the high schools from his previous life, the Hongtian Academy's canteen is rather large. Its size is sufficient to allow more than 10,000 students eat in it concurrently. After successfully recruiting a student, his mood lifted. Thus, he orders a few more side dishes and sits by the corner to enjoy his meal. "Isn't that Teacher Zhong?" While he is eating happily, a voice sounds out. Lifting his head, he sees a young man gazing at him with a smiling face. His face didn't have a hint of warmth and instead, he emits the feeling of a fake smile. "Teacher Cao?" Zhong Xian recognizes him. Teacher Cao's full name is Cao Xiong. He joined the academy along with him. He likes to compare achievements with others and make use of it as a tool to inflate his ego. The previous owner of the body couldn't take insults, that's why he drunk to his death. This fellow definitely played a big role in exerting such pressure on him. Today, the freshmen are reporting at the academy to choose their teachers. "How is your recruitment going?" "Judging by how you still have the mood to be eating here, it should be not bad. Look, these are the students that I have recruited, a total of 12 of them. I am here to bring them for a meal before stationing them at their living quarters." Teacher Cao has a look of superiority on his face. He points to the back as he brags openly. No doubts about it, he is here to brag. There isn't any grudge between Zhong Xian and him. However, since they came into the academy at the same time, it is hard to avoid comparisons between the two of them. Thus, he often made use of him to make himself feel superior. A bunch of youths follows behind him. Every of them has a lively expression on their face as they are curious about the new things here. "Gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you all. This is Teacher Zhong, a celebrity in our academy. He is the very first teacher to score a 0 in the teacher qualification examination since the inception of our academy. He created history." Teacher Cao introduces to the crowd. 0 marks in the teacher qualification examination? "Ah, I have heard of it when I was on the way here. A student he taught went into a frenzy and was almost crippled. I have heard of it as well. Quite a few people have told me before I came to not choose him as my teacher. Otherwise, not only will I not be able to cultivate, it is also equal to suicide. I didn't expect that he would be the one. To think that he has such a kind face." Hearing Cao Xiong's introduction, a commotion breaks out among the students. There are many elements to the teacher qualification examination and a total score will be given based on the evaluation of the various aspects of it. The students' examination results also play a part in it as well. As long as the teacher has some students, there would bound to be a result. Obtaining 0 marks could be considered as making history. "Are you done with your introduction?" Towards the commotion of the crowd, Zhong Xian does not get angry. The one who scored a 0 is the previous Zhong Xian. What does it have to do with him? However, even if he isn't really angry, he is still quite annoyed by the actions of this teacher Cao who raises his own standing by beating others down. He waves his hand and says, "After you are done with your introduction, you can scram. Don't interrupt my meal here." Cao Xiong didn't expect that this fellow wouldn't feel embarrassed even when his history is revealed. He was even asked to scram away. Cao Xiong's face darkens. He shakes his hand and with the prestige of a teacher, he says, "For you to score 0 points in the teacher qualification examination, you have broken the academy's record. Do you not have a sense of shame?" "Shame? Why should I feel ashamed? You have already said it yourself. I have broken the record and became a famous person. All of the freshmen know who I am. However, what about you?" Zhong Xian raises his hand and points towards the students behind Zhong Xian's back. "How much did you score in the examination? Do they know? Before they even came to the academy, do they know who you are? If it wasn't for your insistence to the extent that you even treated them to food, do you think they will acknowledge you as their teacher? To remain unknown as a teacher, you still dare to brag before me. What the hell are you so proud of? Gah! If other people were to score 0 in their teacher qualification examination, their head would definitely remain lowered when they are outside for fear of disgracing themselves. However, this fellow was the direct opposite. He was gleeful about it and held his head up high because of it. Instead, he despises Cao Xiong for not scoring a 0. Cao Xiong is about to explode. His skin is really too thick. The crux of it is, with this kind of results, how can you still be so proud of yourself? The students behind him stare at one another, at a loss of what to do. What about his reputation? His reputation? This teacher, isn't he too shameful? Shame? Thick-skinned? What a joke. In the era that Zhongxian lived in order to become famous, some celebrities did all kinds of shameful deeds. Whatever you could think of, nude photos and fake news, they don't get embarrassed doing these kinds of stuff. Even if he were to score 0 marks for his teacher qualification examination, it doesn't mean a thing compared to the things that those people did. Cao Xiong's face turns red. The main job of a teacher is still teaching. Today, I will not squabble with you. Let's cross blows only after you get a student. Then, we'll see whose student is more skilled. After saying those words, he turns around to leave. At this point, the conversation between a male and female could be heard behind him. That teacher is really not bad. His personality is also good. The voice of a dazed girl sounds out. Hesitation could be heard in her tone. Second young mistress, listen to my words. Before we headed out, young master has already entrusted me to bring you to teacher Lu Zun. However, you refused to listen to me. You even shook me off. Ignoring that, you chose him out of everyone else. The voice of an old man sounds out, a tinge of frustration could be heard in his tone. That teacher is not as bad as you said. He is a good person, he promised to guide me. He said that if I were to train properly, I can become the top of the cohort. Hesitation could still be heard in the voice of the female. You still want to be the top of the cohort. If you were to study under him, it is already a blessing for your cultivation to not go berserk. Second young mistress, do you know who he is? He is the most famous useless teacher in the entire academy. He scored a 0 the last teacher qualification examination. My little ancestor, you better hurry up and withdraw your application, otherwise young master would kill me if he were to hear of this. A pleading tone appears in the voice of the old man. Big brother. Hearing the old man talk about the young master, the little girl starts to get frightened. Her face distorts and she falls into a dilemma. Hearing those words, the leaving Cao Xiong's eyes light up as he smiles towards the eating Zhongxian. Teacher Zhong, could this young lady be the student you just recruited? Haha, looks like it isn't going well for you. She seems to be intending to withdraw as your student. Teachers can pick students and similarly, students can also pick their teachers. If a student finds their teacher inappropriate for them, they can return the token given to them. Cao Xiong's loud voice attracts quite a bit of attention. The mistress and servant duo who were discussing gaze over as well. Second young mistress, is he the teacher you just acknowledged? The old man's gaze falls on Zhongxian. Yes. The young girl nods her head. The old man immediately stands up and walks over to Zhongxian. Teacher Zhong, the young mistress of our family has decided to withdraw from your lessons. Old Liu. She didn't expect the old man's movements to be so quick. The girl's face flushes red and she hurries over. She looks at Zhongxian with a look of apology and says, Teacher, She is the student Zhongxian just accepted, Wang Ying. Wang Ying, you know that I do not accept students. The reason why I accepted you is because our paths crossed. Why do you want to withdraw and give up on such a good opportunity? Do you know how many people desire to become my student, but I refused them? Of course, Zhongxian will not allow her, who he coaxed with much difficulty, to escape. Thus, he assumes a very elderly tone. What the hell? Hearing his words, the ones in the surroundings who are aware of his background feel their vision turning dark and they almost fainted. Big brother, can you at least have a sense of shame? What do you mean by refusing to accept students, paths crossing, and many people desiring to be your student? You are obviously the one who can't recruit any student. This isn't. Under his interrogation, Wang Ying immediately waves her hand, but before she could finish her words, someone interrupts her. Yes. Seeing how indecisive his second young mistress is, the old man Uncle Liu steps forward. Teacher Zhong, our family's second young mistress has decided to withdraw from your class. She finds it hard to verbalize it out. I will be depending on you for the withdrawal procedures. Withdraw? Zhong Xian's eyelids twitch. You have to consider it properly. You will leave behind a bad reputation from withdrawing from a teacher's class. It will be hard other teachers to accept you. Are you going to ruin your young mistress' life just because of your stubbornness? Can you take responsibility? This. Old Liu freezes. Students can withdraw their applications. However, this would be an insult to the teacher. Besides, if you are able to abandon this one, it means you are also able to abandon another one. Normally, this kind of student with bad track record will not be accepted by the other teachers. After all, for someone who has insulted the prestige of the teachers, no one would be willing to accept that kind of students. Besides, accepting the student would mean insulting the teacher to his face. Everyone are colleagues, so it isn't wise for them to offend their peers over a student. Training in the academy, a student can be considered to be ruined if they are unable to find a teacher. Old Liu was still quite determined a while ago. However, hearing his words, he is put in a difficult position. After all, he is just a servant. If the second young mistress's future were to be delayed over this, he is unable to bear the consequences. Rest easy, your family's second young mistress has good talent. I will teach her well, she will definitely score well. Seeing that old Liu is wavering, Zhong Xian starts to coax him as well. What a joke, how could he allow a cooked duck to fly away? Hold it right there, who says that no teacher would dare to accept her? Young lady, if you were to withdraw from this teacher here, I will immediately accept you as my student. Before Zhong Xian could finish his words, Cao Xiong steps forward with his arms spread grandly. He just lost face in front of Zhong Xian. Now that an opportunity presents itself before him, how could he simply let go of it? Cao Xiong, what are you intending to do? Zhong Xian's face darkens. Intending to do? Such a good bud, it would be a pity for it to go to waste. If she were to withdraw from your classes, I will immediately accept her. After all, they came to the academy to study, so it is natural for them to choose the best teacher to guide them, and not someone who scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination. Chuckling, Cao Xiong looks gleeful. Poaching students from me publicly, do you think that I won't report this to the Central Education Bureau? This isn't just a normal bicker but a public poaching of a student. Although the academy encourages teachers to freely choose their students, they do not pardon this kind of snatching of student. The moment it happens, not only will it affect the relationships between the teacher, it could also affect the culture of the school. Poaching students. You speak too heavily. At most, let's have a fair competition advising her by the side. We will let the student choose by herself. Do you dare to agree to it? Cao Xiong says. Chapter 3, Imperfections in Heaven's Path. A live battle between teachers on offering pointers. Zhong Xian's face darkens. Although he has inherited the memories of the previous Zhong Xian, he has yet to organize the information in his head. At most, he can only make sense out of the different realms in cultivation. If it is on mistakes of cultivation, even the previous Zhong Xian could only smoke through it. Needless to say, the current Zhong Xian, guiding others. He is definitely inferior to this teacher Cao. If they were to really compete, he would surely lose. Why? Are you scared to accept the challenge? It is clearly written in the rules that teachers can compete with one another so as to allow the student to make a better choice. This isn't considered as poaching. Cao Xiong chuckles. He flings his sleeves and a serene and scholarly look appears on him. What do we offer the student's pointer on? He knows that if he doesn't settle things properly today, the only student he has recruited is going to flee. Zhong Xian grinds his teeth. There are many aspects for a teacher to guide their students on, such as their cultivation, martial art, and mistakes in training. As the teachers differ from one another, their specialty also differs. How about this? Since they are all new students whom we don't know, how about we have them execute a punching routine, then guide them based on the flaws in their execution. Afterward, we will have a test on the spot and the one whose student improves to a greater extent wins. How about it? Against other teachers, Cao Xiong wouldn't have the confidence to challenge them. However, against the one whose performance is first from the bottom, the one who scored 0 on the teacher qualification examination, he is still confident of his skills. Zhong Xian hesitates. It can't be that you do not dare to accept. You were still bragging so proudly back there that you refused so many students who wanted you as their teacher. If you possess true abilities, let's compete it out. Don't hinder the future of the young lady, Cao Xiong coerces him. That. All right. Zhong Xian nods his head. The worst one thing that can happen to one is death anyway. The worst that can happen now is his loss. If he doesn't accept the duel now, the student he just accepted will definitely withdraw. At this moment, there is nowhere for him to retreat to anymore. If he finds himself unable to make it when it comes down to it later on, he can just make up something random on the spot. Anyway, he has thick skin, so what if it is embarrassing? Teacher Cao and Teacher Zhong are competing. Which of these two teachers on the bottom will win? That's him. A teacher who scored 0 on the teacher qualification examination still wants to compete with others? Are you for real? Isn't he just looking for embarrassment? Upon accepting the challenge, numerous students who were in the midst of eating came crowding over. Today is the day for the registration of freshmen. Quite a lot of people who came have heard of this teacher who scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination, even though they have yet to meet him in person. Most of them are quite curious how it would turn out. Going by the rules, you will guide my student while I will guide yours. Seeing people gathering around, Cao Xiong feels even more motivated to perform. He smiles with his hands open widely. To ensure fairness, competition between teachers disallows them to offer pointers to their own students so as to avoid the suspicion of cheating. Normally, they would exchange students to guide. Young lady, come and display your punching routine. Use your full strength to strike the stone pillar. After confirming the content and method of the competition, Cao Xiong assumes the look of an unworldly saint and looks towards the dazed young lady. Ai. Wang Ying blushes furiously as she peeks at Zhong Xian. After confirming that he isn't angry, she walks forward. With her hands apart, a leisure aura shrouds her entire body. Hoo hoo hoo. The shock wave from the punch causes the wind to whistle. Her punch is full of force. If one doesn't see it personally, they would definitely find it hard to believe that this was a punching routine from the dazed young lady. Her stance is stable and forceful. Just from the looks of it, she has built up a great foundation. Very quickly, the punching routine comes to an end. After seeing the punching routine, Zhong Xian falls in despair. With his experience, even with the memories from his previous life, he couldn't see any flaws in it at all. No wonder he would score a 0 for his teacher qualification examination. His eye to perceive such things is too weak. Yuan, yes, your full strength and strike the stone pillar. Seeing that she is indeed a good bud, Cao Xiong nods his head in satisfaction and says, a stone pillar stands not too far away from them. It can be used to gauge the strength of the students so that the students would have a better understanding of their own strength. Wang Ying walks shyly over. She turns the strength she gathered from that punching routine earlier into shooting stars and sends a forceful blow over. Peng! The stone pillar staggers and numbers appear on it. 53. 53 kilograms. The strength of your punch is not bad. Cao Xiong nods his head in approval. For a freshman who has yet to enter the academy to be guided by the teachers, not to mention she is a female, it is already quite incredible for her to have such weight behind her punch. Previously, I have noticed that your punching routine is very vigorous and forceful. However, one flaw with your punches is that your punch route is a little too short. If you can increase the speed of the rotation of your lower limb, its prowess would increase significantly. If I'm not wrong, your legs should be injured, Cao Xiong says. As expected of a teacher, his eye to perceive is indeed much better than Zhong Xian's. With just one look, he is able to tell that the crux to Wang Ying's punching routine is the lower limbs, and from there, he deduced that she might have been injured. Yes. Wang Ying nods her head. Due to your injury, you are a little hesitant to exert pressure on your lower limbs. Let me impart you a method. Don't worry, it will not worsen the injuries on your legs. Following which, Cao Xiong speaks of another new method and explains it thoroughly. Let me give it a try. For Wang Ying to possess such strength at her age, her comprehension ability isn't weak. It didn't take her long to understand the concepts fully. Then, she steps before the stone pillar again and clenches her fist. A surge of strength fills her entire body and she feels like a powerful dragon. Peng. 63. After some simple guidance, her weight of her blows increases by 10 kilograms. For her strength to increase by 10 kilograms, that is a 20% increase. I am done with my guidance. It's your time. Looking at his result, Cao Xiong smiles faintly, and the glee behind it is apparent. For a student's strength to increase by 20% with just a single session of guidance, this is not a bad result at all. Teacher Zhong. Afterward, a student walks out from Cao Xiong's back and readies himself to execute his punching routine. Hold it right there. Zhong Xian raises his hand. Why? Teacher Zhong wants to go against his words. Cao Xiong snickers. Go against my words? What a joke. Do you think I will regret something that I have agreed upon? Zhong Xian speaks with a forceful tone, but in that instant, his heart panics. As a transcender, how could he possibly know how to guide a student? However, if they want to be guided in the field of downloading and watching romance films, he is an expert. I only think that. With the crowd looking at every action of his, Zhong Xian can only bear with the embarrassment while fumbling for a random excuse to escape from the situation. He is your student and he listens to your orders. What if he intentionally refuses to exert his full strength after my guidance? Won't I lose immediately? I will definitely use my full strength. At the very least, I still have that little bit of credibility. Looking at how Zhong Xian doubts him, he grinds his teeth. Alright, I believe in the credibility of this student. However, our duel isn't fair. Now that the student had said those words, Zhong Xian knows that he would only be mocked if he forcefully pushes his way through on that. Thus, he could only thicken his skin further and find another breakthrough. Unfair? What is unfair? Cao Xiong says. Wang Ying is my student. If I win, she is still my student. What would I earn? On the other hand, if I lose, she would become your student. How can this be considered fair? This is just like in a gamble of life. If I win, you would spare me, and if I lose, I would give my life to you. Do you think that this is fair? Zhong Xian says. Keng. Cao Xiong is at a loss. Now that he puts it that way, it is an unfair challenge. This bet is just like a fraud. While Cao Xiong isn't susceptible to any losses, when the other party loses, he would have to pass his student on to him. How about this? If I were to lose, Liu Yang over here will become your student. After considering for a moment, Cao Xiong declares with a gesture of his hand. Liu Yang is the freshman who had walked out to be guided by Zhong Xian. Teacher. He didn't expect that Teacher Cao would make such a decision. Liu Yang is flabbergasted and a look of anxiety appears on his face. To make him acknowledge a teacher who scored 0 in the teacher qualification examinations, he would rather die. Don't worry, teacher won't lose. Cao Xiong looks at him confidently. Yes. Seemingly confident in Teacher Cao, Liu Yang walks over and hoo-hoo-hoo. Regardless of whether Zhong Xian is looking or not, he begins on his punching routine. Initially, he wanted to say a few more words to make this youth give up. However, seeing how he immediately starts on his punching routine, not even giving him a chance to speak, Zhong Xian feels a little desolate. To tell the truth, he doesn't even recognize the punching routine of the student, so how could he find a flaw in it? Needless to say, to guide him. Flaw? What flaw is there in this punching routine? Beads of perspiration flow down his head and anxiety overwhelms him. If he is unable to find a flaw to guide him, embarrassing himself is a small matter. However, the student he took so much trouble to recruit would be gone and he would be expelled from the academy. Boom. Just as he was overwhelmed with anxiety, the library of Heaven's Path in his mind tremors and the deep rumble of a lightning echoes. For words appear on top of the bookshelves. Heaven's Path is imperfect. These 4 words have induces an imposing sensation, as though the mountains. It carries with it boundless prestige and might. The moment the 4 words are formed, a book appears on the bookshelf and books which are intangible and falls before him. What is this? Zhong Xian's heart stops for a moment. He lowers his head to look at the book in his hands. He could only see 2 words on the cover: Liu Yang. Casually flipping to the first page, he could see a dense concentration of words written it. Liu Yang originates from the Liu family from Xiaoyun City. A student of Hongtian Academy. Fighter 1 Dan Jushi Realm. Cultivation technique, Lotus Acupoint Breakthrough Might. Battle techniques, Soaring Flower Fists, Rookie, Dragon Inch Fist, Expert. Flaws, 12 aspects. Number 1, he uses too much strength for his feints. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 12, although his left arm is much stronger, his punching routine is more suited for the right hand. Thus, he is unable to exert his full strength. This. Looking at the densely filled words on top of it, Zhong Xian feels as though he is going mad. Is this for real? Just as he is thinking of Liu Yang's flaws, the Library of Heaven's Path compiles a book on his weaknesses. If what is written on it is for real, then the gift package he received as a transcender is simply too overpowered. You must know that everyone has their own flaws. Every martial art and moves have their own flaw. Perfect doesn't exist in this world. To be able to perceive the flaws of a person and compile it into a book, this library is on the verge of breaking through the heavens. Peng. Just as Zhong Xian is surprised by the changes in the library in his mind, Liu Yang has already completed his punch routine. After a resounding tremor, numbers appear on the stone pillar 62. The weight behind his punch is 62 kilograms. Teacher Zhong, Liu Yang has already finished his demonstration. How about you offer him some guidance? Cao Xiong smiles. Hearing those words, those who are watching the commotion by the side gaze towards Zhong Xian. They want to see how the only teacher who scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination would guide his student. Chapter 4, Slapping Face Eye. The tremor from the Library of Heaven's Path just now caused his attention to be concentrated in his mind, and he is still in a dazed state. Furthermore, he doesn't even know what the other person's punching routine is, so how the hell could he guide him? Teacher Zhong, please correct my flaws. Liu Yang steps forward and bends over completely. By one side, Wang Ying blinks her eyes. She wants to see how this expert she has just met would guide him. Kang. Everyone's gaze concentrates on him. If he doesn't speak soon, he will only end in embarrassment. Just as Zhong Xian is about to spout bullshit, he suddenly remembers Liu Yang's flaws that were recorded in the book in the library. He doesn't know whether what is recorded on it is true or not. However, given the situation, it is probably impossible for him to make something up on the spot. Thus, he could only buck up his courage to say, "There are many flaws in your punch routine, a total of 12 of them." Haha, he said that there are many flaws in there, 12 of them? I didn't hear wrongly, did I? This is the funniest joke I have heard. This soaring flower fist may not be very advanced, but it is one of the most common skills in the entire kingdom and is known as the basic fist. After thousands of years of simplification and refining, although it cannot be considered as perfect, he actually says that there are 12 flaws. A bunch of lies. He probably couldn't discern anything, that's why he decided to make things up. Initially, the surrounding crowd was still pondering over what he could say. The moment he opened his mouth, every one of them bursts into laughter. Soaring flower fist is one of the most basic punching routines of the Qianxian kingdom. It is similar to the Taizu Changquan. As long as one is practicing martial arts, they would have to learn it first. After thousands of years of refinement by countless experts, though it doesn't hold much might, but it is well reputed for its lack of flaws. Even more so, some people call it the flawless fists. For such a punching routine, that fellow actually claims that there are 12 flaws in it. What kind of joke is it? Ignoring the fact that he scored 0 for his teacher qualification examination, even if the principal were to come over, he probably won't be able to point out so many flaws. Oh! Teacher Zhong Shuo is a genius, to be able to find 12 flaws in the soaring flower fists. Do enlighten us. Apparently, Cao Xiong didn't expect Zhong Xian to be so boastful and to say such words the moment he opens his mouth. Excited, His eyes twinkled. He purposely said those words to push Zhongxian into a corner. Even despite hearing the words from the crowd, Zhongxian remains expressionless. However, his heart couldn't help but beat erratically. He didn't expect that the Liu Yang fellow would use a punch routine everyone is aware of. His previous self would definitely be aware of it. However, given that he just transcended over, the other person's memory has yet to fully merge with his. However, even though he is a librarian in his previous life, he is still a transcender with an entirely different set of knowledge. Not to mention, his skin is thick. After rolling his eyes, he says, "Why, you don't believe it? It isn't that I don't want to guide him, but that you all do not trust me. Since you don't want to do as I guided you to, then, you all can't blame me for it. Wang Ying, let's go. This kind of gamble is pointless. Hold it there, we trust you. Do enlighten us." Seeing that he is on the verge of leaving, Kaohsiung immediately stops him. He can tell that the other party is intentionally coming up with exaggerated figures so that other people would refuse to trust him and he could make use of this opportunity to sneak away. However, it wasn't easy for him to grasp hold of this opportunity to teach him a lesson, so how could he give up at this point? Seeing that he is unable to sneak away, Zhongxian can only take out the book compiled by the library once again. If I die, so be it. Since there's no backing out now, he stares at the flaws recorded in the book and looks through the 12 of them once again. Then, his gaze falls on the last one. He grinds his teeth and speaks, "The punch routine you just used is right hand. Let me give you a suggestion. Try using your left hand to strike the stone pillar. Since it is a special privilege granted to a transcender, there is a chance it could be correct. Besides, even if the information on it isn't accurate, he can't think of a better reason to worm his way out at this point. Try using the left-handed version. This can be also considered as guidance. What kind of joke is this? One's left hand is normally weak. If he were to execute it with his left fist, won't he be screwing up the entire punch routine?" The crowd first stuns before a commotion breaks out. All of them stares at Zhongxian with looks of despise. Everyone knows that the left hand is weaker than the right. Given the shock wave from the fist Liu Yang just executed, he obviously isn't left-handed. Yet now, to ask him to execute it with his left hand. What kind of joke is this? Liu Yang, try using teacher Zhong's method so that he can give it up. Apparently, Kaohsiung didn't expect Zhongxian to say that. He is so excited that he is on the verge of skipping with joy, but he still yells a command to Liu Yang. Even though he just accepted him as a student, he is extremely sure that Liu Yang is more skilled with his right and that he isn't a left-handed. If he were to really execute it that way, the force behind it probably wouldn't even hit 30 kilograms. For a student to hit 62 kilograms before guidance and before 30 kilograms after guidance, this will definitely cause Zhongxian's reputation to fall to the gutters. Let's see whether he can still remain so smug. Yes. Liu Yang snickers coldly and executes the punch routine again. He is very aware of the fact that he isn't left-handed. To get him to execute the blow with his left hand. A load of bullshit. Soaring flower fist is the basic fist he has been practicing since young. Although he isn't very used with the inversion of left and right, he soon got over it. Even though the shock wave from the fist creates a strong gale, regardless of whether it is his strength or proficiency, it seems to be worse than the previous one. Could it be my privilege as a transcender is a sham? Zhongxian is very nervous. Other people's privilege when they transcend includes an old grandfather who could just casually enlighten them. As long as they were to follow his instruction devotedly, there would bound to be no problems. Yet, he just has to get a library with all sorts of messy things written in the book. If what is written in the book is false, he would definitely get expelled from the school. Very quickly, he finishes the routine. Liu Yang walks over to the stone pillar and raising his left fist, he smashes it in. 1. A series of digits appear. 1. Haha, to think it would be in the tens. When the digit 1 appears on it, Kaohsiung bursts into laughter as an exhilarated expression appears on his face. However, before he could finish his words, they got stuck in his throat. His eyeballs are about to fall onto the ground. 123? 123 kilograms. The crowd who had intended to mock him are scared foolish and they tremble uncontrollably. Previously, Liu Yang's blow did 62 kilograms, and now that it has risen to 123 kilograms, that is almost a single fold. That is almost a 100% increase. Is that for real? Even the teacher who scored first in the teacher qualification examination throughout the campus, during his first guidance, can't possibly cause his student's result to increase by a single fold. Is this from me? Even the person in question, Liu Yang, is stunned. He stares foolishly at the rock pillar in disbelief. He knows that he isn't left-handed. However, never could he imagine that his left strength would hold so much strength. That is a single fold compared to his right. The crowd is astonished. Zhong Xian almost leaps from all the joy surging through his body. It's true. At this instant, he can finally confirm that the flaws compiled by the library are true. To be able to see through the skills a person is cultivating in and his weakness. This privilege of a transcender is really going to bash through the heavens. So, how was it? Your guidance has led to a 20% improvement while mine has led to a 100% improvement. Teacher Cao, what else do you want to say? Zhong Xian snickers. Cao Xiong's face turns pale as he feels a burning sensation on his face. Initially, he proposed this competition to see the other party make a fool out of himself. In the end, the one who was made a fool of is himself. Retrieving a jade token from his embrace, he bites on his finger and a drop of fresh blood falls on it. Liu Yang, I am revoking your status as my student. You can now acknowledge Teacher Zhong as your teacher. After saying that, he glances at Zhong Xian. You don't have to be too smug about it. This time, you were lucky. The next time we compete, I will make sure that your reputation is ruined. Then, he turns around to leave. This time, not only did his reputation take a blow, he lost a student and even got slapped hard on his face. It is one thing to lose to other teachers. However, the main crux of the problem is that this fellow is the one who scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination, the worst teacher in the entire academy. Teacher. Watching as Cao Xiong departs, Liu Yang's face darkens. Although he managed to achieve a good result under Zhong Xian's guidance, he, like Cao Xiong, believes that it was only luck. He doesn't believe that he would have this kind of skills. Alright, you are now my student. Hurry up and take out your identity card. Zhong Xian doesn't care what he is thinking about. A victory in a bet has given him a new student, so he is still busy celebrating over it. He casually tosses a jade token over. Although Liu Yang isn't really willing to become his student, he knows that he has to give in to the results of the bet. If he doesn't acknowledge this Zhong Xian as his teacher, the other teachers would definitely reject him. Thus, he could only drip his blood onto this jade token to complete the verification. Tomorrow, meet here for lessons. After finish dealing with Liu Yang, Zhong Xian doesn't say anything excessive. He looks at Wang Ying and said those words faintly before walking out of the canteen. Returning back to his lecture hall, Zhong Xian delves into his mind without second thoughts to examine the library of Heaven's Path closely. After examining for a while, he finally understands a thing or two about it. As long as the person executes his skill or martial art before him, it would immediately compile into a book of their flaws. Haha, I have really struck it rich this time. With this thing in my hand, I would be able to see through any flaws at one go. I don't believe that I will still score a 0 for the next teacher qualification examination. Frenzied joy races through his heart. As a transcender, Zhong Xian finally feels some enthusiasm for the future. Taizu Changquan literally means ancestor long fist. A brief introduction of long fist. It is a close combat skill which emphasizes stretching one's limbs to the maximum. It is a high aggressive style whose motto is the best defense is a long offense. Source: Wikipedia. Taizu Changquan is known as one of the 6 great long fists in China. There are multiple names to it, depending on the region, but it is well established and influenced the creation of many other fists in the future, thus giving it the title of Mother of 100 Fists. Source: Baidu. Chapter 5. Young Mistress, have you heard? Kaohsiung Laroche had just competed with the academy's #1 teacher from the bottom, teacher Zhongxian. They competed. Then, won't Zhongxian Laroche lose for sure? Unexpectedly, that wasn't so. Zhongxian Laroche won. He casually guided a student and made his strength increase by 1-fold. Increase by 1-fold? In his first guidance. Even Luzun Laroche wouldn't be capable of doing that. Are you for real? A lot of people witnessed it for themselves, so how could it not be real? Those who witnessed the competition in the canteen are discussing over it excitedly. For the student's strength to increase by 1-fold in the first guidance. Zhao Wei scoffs. It is definitely just luck. Baiyu City is the third biggest city in the Tianxian Kingdom and Zhao Wei is the daughter of its city lord. From young, she has been put through top-class education and her motive for coming to Hongtian Academy is to be accepted as Luzun's student. However, she didn't expect to hear that Luzun would be inferior to Zhongxian before she even found him. Naturally, she doesn't believe such rumors. Luck. I don't think that it is luck. After all, it is an increase by an entire fold. Just luck itself won't explain it. A student sitting not too far away from her couldn't help but respond to her words. You think that it isn't luck? Don't think that I do not recognize that Zhongxian Laroche. He is the one who scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination and almost got fired. What capabilities do you think a guy like that would possess? If you do not believe my words, I can unmask his facade right here and now. Zhao Wei has had an impatient personality since young. Upon hearing someone praise the worst teacher in the academy, she immediately bellows. Fine. We also want to know whether the teacher is just all talk. Instantly, 2 students stand up. The 3 of them walked out of the canteen and after asking around, they found Zhongxian's classroom. Pushing open the door, they walked in. You are Zhongxian Laroche? Walking into the classroom, they see the young man sitting on the teacher's seat smiling foolishly to himself. No matter how they look like it, he doesn't seem like an impressive teacher. In fact, they started to feel uncomfortable. That's me. After noticing the entry of a few students, Zhongxian stopped analyzing the library of Heaven's Path and turns over to look at them. We've heard that you have won in a competition against Kaohsiung Laroche and the student you guided had an increase in strength by 1-fold. Zhao Wei states with clear disbelief in her tone. Good. Then I would like you to guide me as well, to see whether you can increase my strength by 1-fold as well. I'm not free. Zhongxian waves them away. Teachers also have their own pride as educators. They aren't performers who would perform to the will of the audience. How could they just guide others just because they want them to? Besides that, what's with your attitude? It's not like I owe you something. Not free. Aren't you very idle right now? Zhao Wei could tell that the other party is just trying to shake her off. She grinds her teeth in anger. She told her friends that she would come and expose his facade, yet right now, she is being chased away without even getting a glimpse at his abilities. She feels embarrassed. I have to recruit students. I don't have the effort to fool around with an arrogant little girl, Zhongxian says calmly. You. Zhao Wei is so furious that her beautiful eyes roll around. She is the daughter of a city lord, not to mention she is blessed with good looks. No matter where she goes, people look at her with eyes of admiration. However, not only did this fellow reject her, he even said that she was fooling around. How hateful. Even if he is a teacher, this is unforgivable. What must we do for you to guide us? Grinding her jade-like teeth, Zhao Wei questions. Acknowledge me as your teacher. Zhongxian replies calmly, as he looks at Zhao Wei with a bizarre expression. Seeing how the other party is looking at her as though she is an idiot, Zhao Wei staggers. Fine, I will acknowledge you as my teacher. However, if you were to teach me erroneously or give me bullshit, I will expose your lies. Zhao Wei. You can't. If you were to take him as your teacher, you won't be able to become Luzun Laoche's student. The 2 friends who came with her almost fainted upon hearing her acceptance of his request. They immediately try to persuade her. Hearing the persuasion of her 2 friends, Zhao Wei hesitates. She is aware of the school rules. After becoming a teacher's student, if the student wants to acknowledge another teacher, they would have to first withdraw from the lessons of their current one. However, if they were to do so, the other teacher would tend to reject the student. Not to mention, a popular teacher like Lu Zun. You don't have the guts to? If you don't dare to, just hurry up and leave. Don't hold up my business. Recruiting new students. Zhong Xian waves her away. Who says that I do not have the guts to? She was still hesitating, but upon hearing Zhong Xian's words, Zhao Wei immediately explodes. Her eyebrows frown and she says, I will acknowledge you as my teacher right now. Let's verify our relationship. Your attitude is too bad. Even you want me as your master, I don't want to accept you. Zhong Xian waves her away yet again. It is natural to want to recruit obedient students, just like the previous Wang Ying. However, the current one seems to be on gunpowder. Even if he lacks student, he is unwilling to admit her in. You. She didn't expect that when she chose to bear with it to acknowledge him as her teacher, he still refused to accept her. Zhao Wei can feel flames arising from her. She came here specially to expose his fraud. If she were to stomp away furiously now, wouldn't she be falling into his trap? Perhaps, this fellow is intentionally trying to chase her away so that his fraud cannot be exposed. She is adamant to not allow things go his way. H, I will just admit it as my fault first then. After I expose your true face, see how I will put you in place. Thinking so, Zhao Wei suppresses the rage in her heart. She smiles faintly, exposing her white teeth. Teacher, don't get angry. I was disrespectful. I sincerely wish to become your student. May I plead with you to accept me? This is more like it. Seeing her change in attitude, Zhong Xian nods his head. I can accept you as my student. Before that, I would like you to clean this room. I don't want to see a speck of dust here. Also, help me tidy up the washroom outside. Scrub the toilet bowls clean. Afterward, I will check on it. If I am satisfied with your work, I will admit you in under my tutelage. Don't go too far. Zhao Wei is about to go on a rampage. What is her identity? She is the daughter of a city lord, a daughter of a noble. From young, she has never done any household chore before, and yet this fellow intends for her to sweep the room. Even cleaning the washrooms. Scrub the toilet bowls. Is he insane? If you can't even do such superficial tasks, you can leave right now. I don't need lazy and useless students. Zhong Xian says. Hee, little lass. You want to play with me? You are still much too inexperienced. Who says that I am useless? I will clean up now, I will scrub now. Zhao Wei grinds her. Grabbing a broom and mop, she starts to tidy up the room. Zhao Wei, how about we just forget about it? I don't think he is really capable. He is purposely making things hard for you. The two friends who tagged along with her, upon seeing the young mistress of a city lord starting to clean up the place, they are all horrified and quickly attempt to convince her otherwise. Both of you wait outside first. Since young, I, Zhao Wei, have never really lost before. Today, I have decided to go all out against him. Zhao Wei frowns. That. Her two friends understand Zhao Wei's temper. Seeing that she can't be persuaded, the both of them look at each other, at a loss of what to do. Inform Butler Yarrow, didn't he come as well? If the butler were to know that the fellow who scored 0 for his teacher qualification examination was ordering young mistress to scrub the toilet bowl, he would definitely stop here. After staring at each other for a moment, one of them came up with a solution. For a person of Zhao Wei's identity, even though there weren't any threats on the journey to the academy, there was still someone who escorted her. The person who escorted her was Butler Yarrow. Presently, he should still be around the academy. All right, let's look for him now. Without any hesitation, the two of them immediately rush out of the academy. For Zhao Wei, who has a stubborn temper just like any other daughters of rich households, even though she has never done household chores before, it didn't take her long to adapt to it. Swiftly, the interior of the room became clean. Even the washroom outside is sparkling. Not bad. Zhong Xian nods his head in satisfaction. You should be satisfied now. You can admit me as your student and guide my cultivation now, right? After finishing her work, Zhao Wei crushes her teeth together luo luo. Her jade-like face distorts as she tries to hold herself back from punching the guy in front of her. Your identity card. Disregarding the other party's murdering gaze, Zhong Xian throws a jade token to her casually. Taking a deep breath, Zhao Ya drips a drop of blood on it, verifying their relationship. Zhong Laroche, now that I can your student, can you give me a pointer or two? Now that she is on the verge of accomplishing her objective, revealing the true face of the despicable man before her, Zhao Ya suppresses the excitement in her heart and asks, display fighting technique to me first, so that I can gauge your fundamentals. Zhong Xian beckons. Yes. Without any nonsense, Zhao Ya clasps her hands together and bows before executing her skills. Hoo. The wind howls. Her blow is full of might. As a female as well, her blows are much faster and stronger than Wang Ying. With a single look, it is apparent that she put quite a bit of effort into her training. While looking at Zhao Ya execute her skill, Zhong Xian's mind is currently in the library. As expected, with a light tremor, a book falls from the shelves. The two words Zhao Ya are written on the cover. Zhao Ya, the daughter of the city lord of Baiyu City. Fighter 1 Dan Jushi Realm Pinnacle. Cultivation technique, white jade pure maiden skill. Weakness, 27 flaws. Number 1, her personality is rash and she is easily angered. This goes against the white jade skill's nature of calmness and smoothness, so she is unable to bring out its full strength. Number 2. The book is just like what he saw previously. It records all of the flaws and deficiencies in Zhao Ya's cultivation. Peng. After a short moment, Zhao Ya completes the entire punch routine. Clenching her feminine hands, she turns around and sends a blow towards the rock pillar in the classroom that is used for measuring the strength of one's blow. A crisp sound. A set of number appears on it. 110. Not bad. Zhong Xian can't help but nod his head. To be capable of wielding such strength in her fist before coming to the academy, Zhao Ya is indeed the daughter of a city lord, holding extraordinary strength. Alright, give me some pointers. After executing her skill, her face doesn't turn red nor does she gasp for breath. Zhao Ya turns to look at Zhong Xian. Chapter 6. What did you do to our young mistress? Finishing what that has to be done, Zhao Ya is ready to see the fellow before her make an embarrassment out of himself. Suddenly, an idea comes to mind and a record crystal appears in her sleeves. Record crystal, it is an object capable of recording video and audio in its surrounding. She intends to use it as evidence of Zhong Xian's wrongdoing. This way, he would be unable to talk his way out of it when she spreads word about his crime. Let's see how you would be humiliated then. To think that you would dream of competing with Luzon Laroche, dream on. Upon the thought that she would be able to grab hold of evidence on him soon to punish him and vent her frustration, Zhao Ya's eyes glitter and she almost failed to control her laughter. Suppressing her happiness, just as she was waiting to see what nonsense the other party would come up with, a pair of clear eyes reminiscent of lanterns appear right in front of her. Zhao Ya leaps in shock and backs away hurriedly. Only then did she realize that it is Zhong Xian Laroche. She grinds her teeth in anger and exclaims, "What are you doing? Relax, I am just taking a look." With his hands behind him, he circles around Zhao Ya, shaking his head. Then, he suddenly stops before Zhao Ya with less than 1 kai between them. I.e. 33. 3 centimeters. She can feel the warmth from his body. Zhao Ya's face blushes. From young, there hasn't been a single man who has been in such proximity with her. Her heart beats furiously. Then, she hears an unhurried voice saying, "You are sick." Hearing those words, Zhao Ya almost erupts and faints on the spot. You are the one that is sick, your entire family is sick. She is on the verge of going crazy. What's wrong with this fellow's brain? She executed a set of martial arts for him to point out the flaws in them. Instead, this fellow says that she is sick. How can such a vile person exist in the world? Why did you start hurling insults? Zhong Xian frowns. Soon, he understands what other meanings his words could hold and smiles faintly. I am saying that your body is sick, I am not insulting you. I am not sick. Zhao Ya humps coldly. In my opinion, You are the one who is sick. Something is wrong with your brain. She is as strong as an ox. A single fist of hers has a strength of more than 100 kilograms behind it. She is very clear on the fact whether she is sick or not. Don't refute my words first. Do you often feel a vague pain in your danjong and jujua acupoint? Especially on the night of a full moon, when the humid wind blows, a faint red tinge will appear on your body and you will like. At this point, Zhong Xian hesitates for a moment, as though it is difficult to verbalize it out. He continues, no matter how you train, you feel like your heart won't calm down. TL, danjong is an acupoint in the center of an horizontal line that passes through your two nipples. Jujua is just below the center of your ribcage. How? How did you know? The furious Zhao Yue had intended to refute every word that the other party would say directly, but after hearing those words, her face turns red and she stupefies. It isn't that the words he said are incorrect, but they are simply too correct. Recently during training, she would feel a faint pain in her danjong and jujua, although she would just bear it since the pain isn't severe. The crux of the problem is that, on the night of a full moon, when the cold wind blows, her body would turn weird. A strong desire would surge through her body as it turns red. Unable to suppress her raging emotions, she would find herself craving the embrace of a man. She is just a 16 to 17-year-old young lady who has yet to undergo the matrimony of human bodies, so she was unable to tell what that emotion is. She only feels embarrassed by it. Initially, she thought that she could just bear with it and it would pass. However, these feelings became more and more intense. As her body develops and her chest becomes more and more fleshed out, she felt those tendencies getting more and more uncontrollable. In the past, she could deal with it with just 2 circulations of her cultivation technique. But now, even 10 times wasn't enough for the urges to subside. She could only halt with her training until the sun rises. As this affair is really too bizarre, she doesn't dare to tell anyone about it. Even her best friends and her city lord father is kept in the dark, despite it being a matter no one knows about. How did this fellow find out about it? It is also due to her being unable to bear it that she came to the academy in a hope to find the crux of the problem and solve it once and for all. I am a teacher. I could tell from the punch routine you executed just now. Zhong Xian replies calmly. Of course, it is impossible to tell this much through looking at one's punch routine. The Library of Heaven's Path is an extraordinary treasure. As long as she possesses flaws, even if these flaws have nothing to do with her skills, it would be recorded in it. Exactly because he had seen her problems, that's why Zhong Xian had a bizarre look on his face. Is there a solution? Zhao Yue clenches her jaws and asks with a reddened face. After she was so resolute to expose the fraud of the party, she ended up having her problems exposed by him in an instant. It made her feel embarrassed. There is a method to resolving it. Come to class tomorrow and I will explain it to you. Zhong Xian gestures with his hands. Really? Zhao Yue's eyes light up in disbelief. She is very aware of the problems in her body. Due to her inability to control those raging desires, it caused her become irritable and impatient in everything she does. Initially, she thought she could only conceal this matter in her heart and that there is no way to solve this problem. However, never would she ever dream that this teacher who is the last in the entire academy would be able to uncover it in just a few words. Furthermore, he has a solution to treat it. If you don't trust me, you can look for other teachers in the academy. Zhong Xian flings his hand with an indifferent expression, the look of an expert. No, no. Teacher, you are the only one. Zhao Yue hurriedly nods her head. It hasn't been just a day or two since the start of her suffering. Countless physicians in the city couldn't tell what is wrong with her. Even her father, City Lord Zhao, wasn't able to tell that there is something amiss with her. Yet, this Zhong Xian Laosha could tell with just one look. Just comparing their eyes of discernment, none of these people could compete with him. That is exactly the reason why she thinks that he would have a way to treat her problem. That record crystal, do you still intend to keep it? Zhong Xian points at her sleeves. Ah. Zhao Yue is horrified. Only now does she recall the record crystal she intentionally left behind so as to get evidence on him. If the contents of the conversation were to leak out, How can she continue to walk with her head held up high? I don't. Exerting some force with her palm, catcher, the record crystal is reduced to dirt. After destroying the crystal, Zhao Wei glances at Zhong Larosha once again. This time, his face doesn't look so hateful. Rather, it is an enigmatic face. Despite concealing the record crystal so discreetly, she still got caught. Not to mention, the problems with her body were exposed by him. How could someone of such capabilities score a 0 on the teacher qualification examination? He must be indifferent to fame and reputation, apathetic to the views of outsiders. I have heard that experts are all like that. When this idea appears in her head, Zhong Xian's position in her heart evolves from a swindler to one of the top experts in the world. Take your identity token to claim your bedding and your books. Also, look for your lodging while you're at it. We shall start lessons punctually tomorrow. Seeing that another student has been reeled, Zhong Xian waves his hand as he passes down instruction to her. Suddenly, a loud roar can be heard from the outside and in a flash, a human figure rushes in. Who? The person who entered is a middle-aged man. He carries a ferocious aura with him as he enters into the classroom. From a single look, one can tell that he isn't weak. Young mistress. After entering the door, the middle-aged man stops and bows to Zhao Wei. Uncle Yarrow, why are you here? Zhao Wei stares at him blankly. This isn't anyone else but the butler from Bayou City whom her two friends went to invite, Yarrow Han. Just as he was about to leave after sending Zhao Wei to the academy, her two friends rushed over to inform him that the young mistress wants to acknowledge the fellow who scored a 0 on the teacher qualification examination as her teacher and that he even ordered the young mistress to scrub the toilet bowls. Hearing those words, Butler Yarrow Han almost exploded on the spot. Young mistress, the apple of the eye of the city lord. At home, no one dares to order her around. To dare to get her to sweep the floor and scrub the toilet bowls. He is too audacious. If this fellow is one of the more reputable teachers in the academy, he could drop the matter since they tend to be pickier. The crux of the problem is that this fellow was the last in the teacher qualification examination, not to mention he even drove a person berserk. How can the young mistress study under someone like that? Even in the city, the people who guided her, even if casually, are much stronger than this person over here. Young mistress, are you? Staring coldly at Zhong Xian, Yarrow Han quickly glances at the young mistress. I have already acknowledged Zhong Larosha as my teacher, Zhao Wei declares. Running here with his full strength, he didn't think that he would still be a step too slow. Yarrow Han's face darkens as he pulls Zhao Wei to his back. He stares at Zhong Xian coldly. Quickly withdraw our young mistress from your tutelage. Then, apologize. Otherwise, when I blow this matter up, everyone will know that you bewitched an underage lady as a teacher to get her to come under your tutelage. Bewitched an underage lady? Isn't your use of phrase a little too much? Zhong Xian shakes his head. If others were to hear such words, they would think that he had done something towards Zhao Wei. The heavens can serve as his witness that all he has done was to accept a student. It is an extremely pure action. Don't play around with me. The young mistress of our family is a talented genius. She isn't someone a person of your qualification can teach. If you were to remove her from your lessons now, I can choose to just let this pass. Otherwise, I will definitely bring this up to the principal and have you fired. Yarrow Han howls. However, before he could finish his words, Zhao Wei interrupts him from his back. Uncle Yarrow, what are you doing? I have acknowledged Zhong Larosha as my teacher of my own free will. Why are you causing trouble for me? Zhao Wei stomps her feet. The reason why she came to the academy was to solve the problem with her body. She is still happy over the fact that the teacher before her assured her that he would be able to help her, and yet this fellow here comes to mess it up. What the heck is he doing? Of your own free will? Yarrow Han glances at the young mistress. Do you think that he can really give you guidance that would allow your strength to surge? The young mistress is a proud person, he knows that well. Could it be that this teacher who is reputed as trash is able to guide her? That's why she acknowledged him. Allow my strength to surge. That he didn't do. Zhao Wei shakes his head. The other party only pointed out her illness, he didn't guide her on her cultivation. No. Then. Yarrow Han is baffled. All right, Uncle Yarrow, stop asking. Recalling her own illness, Zhao Yai's face turns red. Seeing the young mistress behaving like that, Yarrow Han stares blankly in confusion. Then, when he sees the shattered record crystal on the floor, his face turns frosty and in a split moment, he seems to have turned into a rampaging lion. You darned brat, what did you do to our young mistress? Did you think that I wouldn't dare to kill you right now? Boom. In his rage, a powerful aura surges forth and the wind howls. Jia, the ground creaks in agony as though it is unable to bear the heavy pressure. Chapter 7. You were dumped before. What did I do? Upon seeing at the other party seethe with rage, Zhongxian is speechless. Isn't this misunderstanding getting a little out of hand? However, he can understand that it is natural for others to think that way. After all, without guiding her cultivation, he was able to make their young mistress willingly acknowledge him as her master, and she even blushed upon bringing up the subject. What's more, the record crystal had been shattered. That's obvious, an act of evidence destroying. All of these show that there's something amiss with the situation. Zhongxian is immediately labeled as a weird uncle, a sex maniac, a shameless teacher and other similar titles. Uncle Yarrow, what are you thinking? If you are going to continue behaving like this, I will never bother with you again. Looking at the furious Yarrow Han and hearing his words, how can she not know what is going through his mind? Her face immediately darkens as she exclaims. After all, she is a young lady. This kind of rumors would ruin her reputation. Young mistress. Interrupted by Zhao Yai, Yarrow Han could only withdraw his aura. All right, follow me to collect my bedding. Don't hold me up here, I still have lessons tomorrow. Zhao Yai harumphs and walks out of the room. She is unwilling to talk about her illness. If she were to reveal it to him, he would definitely pressure her to talk about it. Under this kind of situation, how could she possibly talk about it? Thus, unable to come up any other excuses, she could only claim to have willingly acknowledged Zhongxian as her teacher. After seeing the young mistress turning around to leave the room, Yarrow Han glances at Zhongxian coldly with a glint in his eye, seeming to be contemplating over something. Then, with a fling of his arm, he turns around and walks out. At this moment, the intention to kill that young man lingers in his mind. If they weren't in the academy and the young mistress didn't stop him, he would have long made his move. Who did I offend this time? Looking at the Yarrow Han's cold gaze, Zhongxian feels perplexed. I only accepted a student. Do you have to go this far? He made it seem as though I am an unpardonable criminal who is the source of all evil in this world. The problem is that he didn't do anything at all. Forget it, there is still time left today. Let's see if I can recruit a few more students. The more students under my tutelage, the more resources I will receive. There are many different levels to the teachers of Hongtian Academy. Every year, an assessment of the teachers would be conducted based on the conditions of their students. The number of the student they have, the pace of their improvement, their results in all kinds of competitions. The teachers are reliant on these to be promoted. The higher their level, the resources a teacher would get would increase exponentially. Naturally, the same goes for the resources their student would receive as well. This is probably what it means by the teacher and the students advancing as one. Right now, he has only accepted 3 students. He might be able to retain his position as a teacher, but if one were to talk about qualifications, he is still the last in the entire school. In order for him to advance, he could only continue recruiting more students. Zhong Yong, don't be too disappointed. Wang Chao Laroche was the only one who rejected you. You don't have to be so depressed. 2 youths are walking on the pavement in the academy. The youth in front is currently trying to console the one behind. Mo Xiao, you were accepted, of course you don't feel anything saying those words. How about you try getting rejected? Zheng Yang frowns, unhappy at his friend's words of consolation. Cough cough, don't say that. There are still a lot of excellent teachers in the academy. There isn't a need for you to choose Wang Chao Laroche out of them all. The youth in front scratches his head in embarrassment. There's no need to choose him. It is easy for you to say. Since young, we have been training in the way of the spear, and the spear has already become a part of our body. It is something we are unable to discard anymore. The best teacher in the art of the spear in Hongtian Academy is Wang Chao Larosha. Now that you were accepted by him while I was rejected, is it possible for me to not get depressed? Zheng Yang rages. That. Mo Xiao didn't know how he should reply to such a question. In Hongtian Academy, different teachers have different specialization. Some of them specialize in fists while some of them specialize in sabers. Wang Chao Larosha is well known for his capability in imparting the way of the spear. He is considered as one of the better teachers, even considering the entire academy. The both of them joined the examinations together in a hope to become his disciples. However, one of them passed while the other one failed. It is natural that the one who failed would feel gloomy. There is a classroom there. How about we take a look? Unsure about how he should resolve this awkward situation, Mo Xiao suddenly sees a classroom not too far away and points towards it. I'm not going. Zheng Yang shakes his head. Let's go and take a look. What if this teacher is also skilled in imparting the way of the spear as well? Mo Xiao consoles. Anyway, you have nothing to lose just by visiting it. All right. Although he is unwilling, Zheng Yang still follows Mo Xiao into the room. The person inside the room in Zhongxian. He is just about to go outside to recruit some fresh blood when he sees two youths walking in. Nice to meet you, teacher. Mo Xiao bows. Yuan. Zhongxian widens his eyes slightly. Are you here to look for a teacher? Yes, this is my brother. He is extremely formidable, especially with his spear. In the younger generation, there are few who can compete against him. I hope that teacher can guide him, Mo Xiao says hurriedly. Mo Xiao. Zheng Yang pulls the sleeves of his good brother. What is it? Mo Xiao asks in confusion. Look at the surroundings. Zheng Yang frowns. This classroom is extremely narrow. From the looks of it, it could only fit 10 people or so. It is obviously a small classroom. The size of the classroom is representative of the capability of the teacher. The teachers who are ranked in the top few have classrooms the size of a field, allowing more than hundreds of students to cultivate and train at the same time. In comparison to that, this classroom is just like the size of a palm. The teacher of this classroom is probably only of average standard. It's indeed quite small. Mo Xiao notices the size of the room and his heart beats. Ji Deng. Initially, he wanted to help soothe the stifled emotions in his best friend's heart. Yet, unwittingly, he came to this kind of location. If the teacher's standard is really subpar, not only will the stifled emotions not disappear, it might even weigh heavier on his heart. Demonstrate your ability with the spear. Seemingly oblivious to the secret conversation taking place between the two, Zhongxian says calmly. Since we came here, we might as well have this teacher guide you for a bit, since there's nothing to lose. If his standard is really bad, we could just refuse to acknowledge him and leave. Seeing the look of hesitation on Zheng Yang's face, Mo Xiao persuades him. Yuan. Zheng Yang nods his head. Other than some exceptionally popular teacher that most students set their eyes on, when most teachers choose their own students, their students are allowed to examine the capabilities of the teachers as well. After thinking it through, Zheng Yang immediately retrieves the spear from his back and fixes the multiple parts together. Wang. With the long spear in his hands, Zheng Yang's expression changes instantly, just like the intimidating glint of the sharp edge of an unsheathed blade. Su 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 su. The long spear stabs forward and a sonic waves boom. The entire room sounds as though it is being torn apart and a strong gust of wind whips up in the surroundings. Experts are identifiable the moment they make a move. This Zheng Yang, although he may not be considered too strong, but his prowess with the spear is indeed quite not bad. Who? The tip of his spear tremors and strikes the rock pillar not too far away. A light reverberation lingers in the air and numbers appear on the pillar 110, to think it would be more than 100 kilograms. Just by the destructive prowess itself, even a one-dan fighter Jushi realm pinnacle would be unable to take the blow. Teacher, please offer me some pointers. With his spear held vertically beside him, Zheng Yang stands upright without a hint of nervousness or tiredness as he looks at Zhongxian impassively. Truthfully, Just by the size of the classroom, he doesn't hold high expectations for this teacher. He thinks that his standard would at most be of average. As though proving his point, the teacher before him squints his eye. It is difficult to fathom what he might be thinking. He only slowly opens his eyes after hearing his words. He turns to look at him with a faint hint of a smile on his lips. You are emotionally wounded. That is, you have been dumped before. After thinking it through, Zheng Yang immediately retrieves the spear from his back and fixes the multiple parts together. TL, in case you find this part weird, it is probably like 3 parts to the spear. A spear is quite long. It tends to be taller than a human, so it is hard to carry around. Chapter 8. I am that trash UN? Zheng Yang stares blankly before his face turns red and darkens. I once had a crush on a girl. Then, I was humiliated by her. But this has nothing to do with teacher. He once had a crush on a girl and he had once confessed to her excitedly. However, he was humiliated heartlessly by the other party and he felt ashamed of it. He has kept this incident a secret such that not even Mo Xiao is aware of it. How did this teacher know of this? Is that for real? Zheng Yang, why didn't you tell me that you got humiliated by someone? Who is it? Hearing him admit to it, Mo Xiao is surprised and hurriedly asks him. I will tell you about it later. Zheng Yang shakes his head, refusing to say any more about it here. He looks at the teacher before him and says, Teacher, this is my private affair. I have no idea how you could have knew this, but this should have nothing to do with guiding me in the way of the spear. Nothing to do with it. Zhong Xian shakes his head. This has everything to do with it. Everything to do with it. Zheng Yang is a little doubtful of his words. What does a broken heart have to do with the Zhong Xian guiding him? Your spear is decisive and powerful. This is just like your personality. No matter what you do, you always charge straight ahead without thinking about the consequences. This should have been a good thing. Warriors should be like that, charging ahead without concerning themselves with minor things. Zhong Xian looks at Zheng Yang calmly. However, it is a pity that after your emotional experience, fear started to sprout within you. You fear rejection and you fear humiliation. There is hesitation in your spear. With that additional hesitation, your strength greatly reduces. You could see all these from my spear? You could tell that I was once heartbroken? You could tell my personality? Zheng Yang is shocked. The words of the other party aren't wrong. Rather, they are too correct. There isn't even a single error in it. His personality is straightforward and in this past, this allows him to charge ahead bravely without fear. Yet, due to that emotional experience, he starts to become timid and hesitant in everything he does. For him to be capable of telling all these through his spear, even his heartbreak, what kind of eyes do he possess? When did such an impressive teacher appear in the academy? He feels as though he is going crazy. Previously, when he visited the #1 spear teacher Wang Chao to request for him to accept him as a student, Wang Chao only told him that he has yet to grasp the crux of the way of the spear. As for the reason behind it, he couldn't really tell. However, with just a single look, the man before him could tell that he had a history of heartbreak and that his skills stagnated due to the emotional trauma from it. Could this teacher's ability to discern be stronger to Wang Chao? This is normal. Zhong Xian gestures with his hand, a look of an expert appearing on his face. The spear is a reflection of one's heart. If one's heart isn't clear, the skills they display through it would be dark. Even though your skills with the spear is coherent, it feels as though there is something shrouding it, something that you are unable to make sense of, something that you are unable to sever from you. With just one look, I can tell that it is definitely a crush. This time, not only does Zheng Yang's face crumbles, even the mouth of Mo Xiao beside him is opened so wide that an egg could soon be stuffed inside it. What the heck, are you for real? Just by looking at one's skill with the spears, you could tell that emotions are shrouding it, and the unable to make sense of and unable to sever. Are these still the eyes of a human? Mo Xiao and Zheng Yang stares at one another, disbelief appearing in both of their eyes. Teacher, can you help me take a look as well? After the shock, Mo Xiao steps forward with a look of desire on his face. Regardless of whether Zhong Xian is agreeable or not, The spear in his hands tremble and he begins to execute his moves. He executes the same moves as Zheng Yang, just that they are stronger and much more fluid. Just by his skills with the spears itself, he is indeed better than Zheng Yang. It is no wonder that Wang Chao Laosha chose him and not Zheng Yang. Who? After a gust of wind, Mo Xiao retracts his spear and stands up straight. When his spear moves, he is like an unparalleled frenzied demon. When his strength overflows, even gods and spirits dare not approach. When his spear retracts, he stands quietly just like a statue. With a movement of his hands and feet, his disposition changes. Although he cannot be considered to be strong, being at Fighter 1 Dan, he could be considered to have walked quite a distance in the way of the spear. You have a weak stomach. If I am not wrong, you even suffered diarrhea today. Zhong Xian's serene gaze turns towards him. Ah! A shudder passes through Mo Xiao. Teacher, you could tell that I had diarrhea from my spear? Just like what the other party said, his stomach isn't doing well today. He already started having diarrhea from yesterday. Today, it got even worse and his body feels weak. However, this doesn't really affect him much. With a spear in his hand, he still managed to execute his skills at top form such that even Wang Chao Laosha couldn't stop praising him. Yet, the man before him could see through it in an instant. Is that for real? To be able to tell one's heartbreak and diarrhea just from his spear, what are his eyes made of? You want me to guide you? If you want, then acknowledge me as your master. Ignoring the shock of the two, Zhong Xian looks at them calmly. To be able to tell the condition of them both so simply, the both of them are about to go mad from shock. Yet, it doesn't seem like anything much to him. The truth is the same as well. When the both of them executed their skills, the Library of Heaven's Path automatically compiled a book on them both and the heartbreak and diarrhea naturally appeared in the list of their flaws. Zhong Xian only has to take a look and read them out loud. There isn't any difficulty to it at all. Disciple Zheng Yang is willing to acknowledge teacher as my mentor. Without any hesitation, Zheng Yang immediately kneels on my floor. He is truly impressed by Zhong Xian. With this kind of eye for discernment, how could his guidance be ordinary? Seeing how Zheng Yang acknowledges him as his master just after he pointed out a flaw of his, even before he started guiding him, Zhong Xian nods his head satisfactorily. He retrieves a jade token representing his new identity to him and says, "Verify our relationship." Yes. Without any delay, Zheng Yang immediately drips a blood on it to verify his ownership of the token. Very quickly, the procedures are completed. Since you are now my student, let me give you a suggestion. If you want to be respected in a relationship, you must first hold sufficient strength. Without strength, how could the other party think of you as an equal? Thus, the first thing you have to do is not to be depressed but to open up your mind and focus on your training. You must let the other party know how foolish they were to reject you. You must use your strength to prove to them. At this point, Zhong Xian suddenly recalls a very show-off book from his previous life and smiles faintly. The river reverses its flow after 30 years. Do not bully the youths just because they are poor. Do not bully the youths just because they are poor. Hearing those words, Zheng Yang feels a burning sensation in his chest. He feels so agitated that his face turns entirely red and his body trembles uncontrollably. As a person born in this world, how could Zheng Yang possibly have heard of those words? In that instant, his battle will seem to have been lit. The depressed emotions he welled up from his heartbreak seems to shine brightly like diamonds. Try executing your skills again. Seeing how he has broken out of his shell, Zhong Xian gestures. All right. Without saying anything, with the spear in his hands, Zheng Yang's disposition changes in an instant. It is completely different from his disposition previously. Hong 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 hong. His spear sweeps about as his aura rumbles. Powerful strength is exerted through the spear and scatters into the surrounding, shaking the entire room. Peng. At the end of his spear routine, he sends a horizontal stab towards the rock pillar. A deafening reverberation and a line of digits appear on it. 235. To think it would be 235 kilograms. Previously, when he used his full strength, it was only 110. With just a pointer, his strength increased by more than a single fold. Thank you, teacher. Seeing the numbers, the doubts in Zheng Yang vanished. He kneels onto the floor. At this moment, he is truly convinced in the capabilities of the teacher before him. Incredible. Looking at the numbers on the rock pillar, Mo Xiao couldn't help but turn red as his entire body trembles. He is delighted over finding a good teacher for his good brother. Yet, he feels disappointed at the same time. Previously, when Wang Chao guided him, his strength only increased by 30%. Yet, the teacher before him enhanced Zheng Yang's strength by more than a fold. If only he had known that this nameless teacher is that formidable, he wouldn't have wasted his effort to look for Wang Chao and would have immediately acknowledged him as his teacher. At this moment, he feels a little regretful. However, doubt sprouts in his mind. How could such a formidable spear teacher remain unknown? He can't resist asking, "Teacher, since you have accepted Zheng Yang as your student, could we have the honor of knowing your name?" Hearing his words, Zheng Yang looks over as well. He is completely impressed by this teacher, but at this moment, he realizes that he doesn't even know his name. "I am Zhong Xian." Zhong Xian replies calmly. "Zhong Xian? That name sounds familiar." Hearing that name, Mo Xiao ponders for a moment. Then, something comes to mind and his eyes narrow. His lips quiver uncontrollably as he asks, "I seem to recall. The trash teacher who scored 0 points for his teacher qualification examination is also called Zhong Xian. It seems that teacher, you have the same name as him." "Yuan, I am that trash." Zhong Xian nods his head. "Ah." Zheng Yang and Mo Xiao petrify. Chapter 9. Bet there are many rumors regarding that useless teacher. Before even coming to the academy, they have heard so much about him that callous were growing on their ears. They say that he is skilled in nothing and that he had been misguiding disciples. They say that he doesn't know how to cultivate and he doesn't know martial arts at all. All in all kinds of slander there is. As long as one is a student, it is best to stay as far away as possible from him. Do not mess with this fellow, otherwise going berserk is just a small matter at hand. At worst, they may even die in his hand. When both brothers came to the academy to seek a teacher, they have also heard of such rumors. All along, they have been proceeding carefully, but never in their dreams would they imagine that this unworldly and incredible expert is that legendary trash. "Teacher, if you are so incredible, why would?" Zheng Yang couldn't resist asking. Although it has just been a short period of time since they knew each other, he could tell that the teacher before him had immeasurable capabilities. Every single movement of his has an elegant disposition. How could he be a trash? There are many people in the world who are envious of the talented. This kind of things means nothing at all. Zhong Xian tilts his eyes upwards 45 degrees as sadness and regret reflect in his eyes, as though lamenting the incomprehension of the world. The emotions on his face are in place, but in his heart, he is scolding vulgarities. If it wasn't for the Library of Heaven's Path, given how the previous owner of the body was, it was already very incredible of him to not get a negative score. 0 marks is already a high score. All right. I am willing to cleanse teacher of his sullied reputation. Seeing his teacher's depression and incomprehension of the world, Zheng Yang's heart is moved and he couldn't help but declare so. "It's okay, teacher's reputation doesn't matter. As long as you train hard, I would be satisfied. Take the identity token to claim your bedding. Come to class punctually tomorrow, make sure to not be late." After Zhong Xian's show of acting cool, he seems to have fully captured the worship of the student. Zheng Yang nods his head. "Yes." Zheng Yang pulls Mo Xiao, who is standing beside him, and the both of them walks out. 4 students. Seeing the two of them leave, excitement flashes across Zhong Xian's eyes. The dazed young lady Wang Ying, the student who he won from a bet Liu Yang, the arrogant young mistress Zhao Ya, and the spear genius Zheng Yang. Initially, he thought that today would be just like how it was before, he would be unable to recruit a single student and the day would end in a failure. He didn't expect that he would manage to recruit 4 of them. "Without identity token, even if students were to come, I would be unable to admit new students. I better make use of this free time to get a few more tokens." After getting emotional over recruiting 4 students, does Zhong Xian realize that he doesn't have any more tokens on him. This item is given out by the academy. Due to his terrible reputation, the teacher in charge of distributing the tokens only gave him 4. He even thought that Zhongxian would be unable to use all of it. If he doesn't claim more of it, even if new students were to come, they would be unable to acknowledge him. This token contains the information of the teacher. Once a student claims ownership of the token by dripping a blood drop on it, it means that they acknowledge the teacher as their mentor. On the other hand, if they would like to withdraw from the lesson, the teacher only has drip a blood drop on it and the information of the student would be erased. Standing up, he walks out of the classroom. The sun outside shines brightly and a heat wave assaults through the shade of the tree, causing people to sweat profusely. Freshmen and older students are walking on the pavements of the academy and excitement could be seen on their faces. Coming into a new environment and acknowledging a teacher, the freshmen are overjoyed. On the other hand, upon thinking of the arrival of new students for them to play with, the older students are full of smiles as well. While walking along the pavement, a large infrastructure appears before Zhongxian. There are 2 giant words hanging on a board in the center of the building: logistics building. The tokens that represent the identity of a teacher are claimed from this building. Yo, who is this? Isn't this our star teacher? For you to not be recruiting students in the classroom to visit me, what do you want? Oh, let me guess, could it be that you used none of the identity tokens, so you are here to return them? Right after walking in, he hears a sarcastic voice sounding out. Zhongxian raises his head and a plump man whose face is full of fats comes into view. This fellow at least weighs 300 to 400 kilogram. From afar, he looks like a giant ball of meat. Chen Biao. A name floats from the depths of his memories. This Chen Biao is one of the teachers in charge of logistics. He is a very spiteful man who always likes to eat into the spare change of others. As the teacher on the lowest level, Zhongxian's salary has been minute and the resources he could claim had always been minimal. Thus, he has never been respected by him. Due to this affair, he offended him. The moment they meet, all kinds of sarcasm and insults would come flying out. Previously, Zhongxian been given 4 identity tokens under the premise that he wouldn't finish it is the work of this man. I have finished using my identity tokens. I would like to claim a few more of them. Can't be bothered with the other party, Zhongxian speaks calmly. Finished using it. Chen Biao stuns for a moment before howling in laughter. Haha, everyone, come and take a look. This teacher who is first from the bottom comes here to brag that he has used up all of his identity tokens. Haha, this is the funniest joke I have heard in the entire world. I seem to recall that you gave him 4 identity tokens back then. Finished it. Him. What a joke. The teacher who is second from the bottom, Sun Yang Laroche, is said to only have 1 student currently. This fellow who made history by scoring 0 in the teacher qualification examination could accept a single student. What are you trying to brag about? Throw him out. Anyway, after today, he would be fired. Upon hearing Chen Biao's shouting, the few teachers in the logistics branch came rushing over. They stared at Zhongxian with looks of disdain. For a teacher who is at the very bottom and scored 0 for the teacher qualification examination, why the hell is he trying to show off? Students would run the instant they hear your name. For them to acknowledge you, what kind of joke is this? Oh, you said that I am bragging? Fine, why don't we bet on it? Zhongxian doesn't get mad. Instead, he smiles. Bet. Fine, since you want to lose so badly, I will fulfill your wish. Just that, given how poor you are, I doubt that there is anything you could offer. Chen Biao didn't expect this fellow who he had always looked down on would challenge his authority face on by betting with him. He snickers in disdain. It isn't your problem whether I am poor or not. Since I proposed the bet, of course, I will take out something I am willing to bet on. Zhongxian widens his eyes. Oh, you are able to take something out. Given your background, the things you take out would probably just be some rotten metal or similar shit-like things. You think that grandfather I would bet with you? I can't afford to lose my reputation betting with you. Chen Biao states contemptuously. Zhongxian is the lowest level teacher in the entire academy, not to mention first from the back. Not mentioning the fact how he is unable to get a single student, He doesn't even have bonuses or so. If one must point out the poorest teacher in the entire academy, it would definitely be him. He lives thriftily even in his daily life, not to mention resources for cultivation. Hee. Zhong Xian isn't bothered by his insults at all. He chuckles and continues, "The thing I would like to bet isn't a treasure or an object. It is face. If you were to lose, I will slap you 3 times in front of everyone else. If I were to lose, I will let you slap me 3 times. Do you dare to bet with me?" Slapping face? He didn't expect the other party would bet on this. Chen Biao couldn't help but to hesitate over it. To be slapped by the academy's worst teacher, if he were to lose, he wouldn't even feel like living on. He would be so embarrassed that he would want to die. "How, do you dare or not?" Zhong Xian smiles at him. "Chen Biao, what are you scared of? It's not like you don't know his standards. Can a teacher who scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination get a single student? Isn't he just dreaming? He is just scaring you. If he is able to recruit them, then won't I have a few hundreds of students by now? Even if the students of this year were to be blind, they wouldn't be blind to such an extent." The other teachers of the logistics branch smirk. None of them believe that Zhong Xian would be able to recruit students. This is as difficult as a pig climbing up a tree. "Fine, I agree." Finding everyone's words logical, he nods his head in agreement. "Since the rest of you are cheering so happily, would you all like to make a bet along with me? With the same terms as him?" Seeing him agree, Zhong Xian looks towards the other 3 teachers of the logistics branch. The previous 3 who were so disparaging a moment ago didn't mind adding to the bet since one of them had already agreed to it. "Why? Do you find your face itchy that you would like us to slap a few more times?" "Fine, I'm in." A teacher declares haughtily. "I'm also in. Who's afraid of you? To be bragging in front of us despite scoring a 0, you are looking for death." The 3 of them nod their head with a smirk on their face. In their opinion, Zhong Xian is bound to lose this bet. Today, he would definitely be slapped. Chapter 10. Going against the bet, all right. Since you said that you accepted 4 students, bring them here now so that can we verify your claim. Or, you do want to just present your face now for us to slap. Looking at the teacher who is first from the bottom arrogantly betting with the 4 of them, Chen Biao smirks coldly. "Bring the students here?" Zhong Xian shakes his head. "You are all teachers of the logistics branch. It can't be that you don't even know the simplest thing. It is easy to verify whether I recruited 4 students or not. As long as students were to claim ownership of my token, their personal information will automatically appear in the Education Bureau. As long as we verify it with the Education Bureau, the truth would be clear for all to see. After all, the Education Bureau can't possibly be working with me just to lie to you all. As long as a student had verified his relationship with a teacher, the information would be automatically transmitted to the Education Bureau and recorded. No one would be able to fake the result. Li Yuan, you take a look. I want to see how this fellow could still act so smug after that." After looking at his confident expression and hearing his words, Chen Biao is taken aback for a moment before turning around to command Li Yuan. Li Yuan is one of the teachers who mocked Zhong Xian previously. Hearing the orders, he turns around and walks out of the logistics branch. The Education Bureau and Logistics Branch belong under the Administration Branch. It didn't take long for Li Yuan to return with a darkened face. "How was it?" Looking at the expression on his face, Chen Biao's heart pounds furiously. Ji Dong, as an ominous premonition looms in his head. There is 4 students who acknowledged him as their teachers. These are their names, are personal information. Li Yuan's face turns strikingly pale. Even now, he still finds the fact hard to believe. Are those 4 students blind? Of the many teachers in Hongtian Academy, why did they have to choose a teacher who scored a 0 in the teacher qualification examination, a fellow who doesn't know anything? Let me look at it. Let's make sure that he didn't find some disabled and blind fellows who could be expelled at any time to be his student. Chen Biao grabs the name list. The other 2 teachers hurriedly surround him. There are quite a few teachers who would recruit some inadequate students so as to boost the number of students they have. These people could be expelled at any time. Even if they were kept in the academy at the moment, they probably wouldn't last more than a few months. In Qian Biao's opinion, for a person like Zhong Xian who ranks at the very bottom, even if he successfully manages to recruit students, he could only recruit the worst of the lot, students whom no one wants. Accepting this kind of students just to fill the numbers doesn't bring the teacher any pride, it brings shame instead. Wang Ying, a female? She doesn't sound like anything by her name. She is probably one of the students who scored the worst in the entrance examination. Looking at the first name on the name list, Qian Biao snorts in disdain. Hongtian Academy is not a place anyone can enter. If one wishes to enroll, they would first have to undergo the entrance examination. Then, the students would be ranked based on their results and those who meets the prerequisites would be accepted. Those who scored the first few in the entrance examination are hot targets for the more outstanding teachers. Each of them is famous in this academy and among them, there doesn't seem to be a student called Wang Ying. Qian Laroche, continue looking on. Before Qian Biao could finish his words, he hears the trembling voice of one of the teachers beside him. Why? Could she be worse than I have described? With a cold laugh, Qian Biao continues browsing down the list. With just one look, his eyes narrow as he reads the detailed information on Wang Ying below her name. Rank 67 of the entrance examination, younger sister of Wang Dao, an elder's disciple, and the young mistress of one of the 4 great families in Tianqian City. The young mistress of the Wang family? Wang Dao's younger sister? Qian Biao gasps in astonishment. There are 4 great families in Tianqian Kingdom and the Wang family is one of it. The young mistress of such an esteemed family acknowledges the fellow who got a 0 for his teacher qualification examination as her teacher. Are you for real? Shouldn't a figure like that go for Lu Zun or Wang Chao? If her family were the ones who induces fear in him, then what that causes him to fall into despair is Wang Ying's elder brother, Wang Dao. He was enrolled in the academy 2 batches prior and after his enrollment, he has always scored within the top 10 in the annual comprehensive evaluation. This year, an elder in the academy even sets his eyes upon him and accepted him in as his disciple. If the older brother has that kind of talent, how bad could the younger sister be? Having an influential background, talent, and a good brother, she still chose to acknowledge this fellow as her teacher. My eyes must be going blind for it to make such a mistake. Qian Biao could hear lightning rumbling around him and he feels on the verge of fainting. Look at the ones below. Just as he is convulsing in disbelief, another teacher exclaims with a shaky voice. He probably used up all of his luck to be able to admit a Wang Ying in. I don't believe that he would be capable of getting someone even more incredible. Clenching his teeth, Qian Biao continues glancing down the list. When his eyes gaze on that name, his entire body convulses yet again and he feels the sight before him turning dark. Zhao Yue. The Zhao Yue who is 7th in the entrance examination? The daughter of the city lord of Baiyu City? Qian Biao feels like tears are going to stream down from his eyes at any point. He just said that he wouldn't believe that Zhong Xian would be able to recruit an even more incredible student and never in his dreams would imagine that he was able to. Not only so, it is a popular student whom countless teachers would go crazy for. He has already heard of this Zhao Yue before she even enrolled in this academy. She is the daughter of the city lord of Baiyu City and not only is she pretty, she is also blessed with great talents. This kind of talent would be competed over by the teachers who rank at the top. Why would she acknowledge such a trash? Impossible, this is impossible. He tries to forcibly suppress his emotions. Glancing downwards, he sees the names, Liu Yang and Zheng Yang. The two may not be very famous, but their rankings are not low in the entrance examinations, scoring within the front 100. Especially, Zheng Yang. It is said that he specializes in the spear. Due to the limitations of the examination, he wasn't able to exert his full strength, causing his ranking to fall behind. If he were to be allowed to use his spear, he might be even able to get into the top 20. Staring at the names of the 4 on the list over and over again, Qian Biao and the other teachers feel like they are going mad. This isn't rational. You must have used some kind of deception to get them to acknowledge you. Even though they acknowledged you as their teacher, they don't know who you are. The moment they find out, they would withdraw from your lessons. Suddenly, Chen Biao howls with a savage expression. What rights does a teacher who scored 0 in the teacher qualification examination have to recruit such outstanding student? He must have used some kind of despicable method which no one knew of. The moment these methods are revealed, these students would abandon him in anger. That is to say, while it is true he has 4 students, these students probably won't follow him for long. They will withdraw from his lessons in a matter of time. It isn't your problem whether they withdraw from my lessons or not. The bet that we decided on was whether I have students now. Now that you all have verified that I have 4 students, shouldn't we be fulfilling the conditions of our bet? Cannot be bothered with the savage-looking quartet whose minds are around the place, Zhongxian speaks calmly. Chen Biao, Li Yuan, and the other 2 have expressions on their face that look as though they are in a funeral. The content of their bets was indeed on whether he had students now, and not what would happen in the future. Going by such, they have lost. However, they are unable to accept the fact that they have lost and that they would be slapped by the worst teacher in the academy. Bet. Little fellow, what if we refuse? After a slight hesitation, Chen Biao smirks coldly and a ferocious look appears on his plump face. Indeed, even if we go against our words, what can you do? Haha, do you want to beat us up? The fact is, do you have the ability to? The worst teacher in the academy with the worst cultivation. To be so smug in front of us, do you believe that even if we were to beat you up to the point that your head swells up like a pig head, no one would come to stop us? Stop acting cool and perhaps you could stay in the academy a little longer. Otherwise, it wouldn't take long for you to be kicked out and be shamed. Li Yuan and the others immediately understood Chen Biao's intentions and sneers. Not only did Zhongxian fare the worst in the teacher qualification examination, his cultivation is also subpar among all of the teachers. Even if he isn't the very worst, he isn't far from it. That's precisely the reason why he doesn't have the eye to discern the problems in the training of his students. Naturally, Chen Biao and the rest wouldn't be willing to be slapped. Since the other party doesn't possess the strength to enforce the agreement, they intend to go against their words to the end. Oh, that is to say, you all don't intend to follow the rules of the bet. Zhongxian isn't angry. Instead, he smiles at them. That's right. You brat, what do you think you are? To think that you would think of slapping me, do you believe that I will slap you to your death right now? Seeing how this fellow doesn't back out and continues acting so smugly, Li Yuan is provoked and immediately sends a slap towards him. Even before the slap reaches, the pressure from the wind causes one to experience shortness of breath. Although this Li Yuan is only a teacher of the logistics branch, his cultivation isn't low. He has already reached the level of a fighter 4 dan advanced. There are 9 dans to a fighter, 1 dan jushi, 2 dan dantian, 3 dan junchi, 4 dan pigu, 5 dan dingli, 6 dan pishua, 7 dan tongxian, 8 dan zongsha, 9 dan jizuan. Another new world appears with every level. The higher you climb, the harder it is for you to progress. In every level, there are 4 tiers: primary, intermediate, advanced and pinnacle. Zhongxian is the youngest teacher in the entire academy, being just 19 this year. His cultivation is only at 3 dan junchi pinnacle. Li Yuan is a level higher than him. The difference between each level is very great and is almost cannot be overcome. Just when everyone thought that Li Yuan would definitely strike on Zhongxian's face, leaving him faint-headed, a sudden crisp sound echo. Everyone immediately sees a red mark on Li Yuan's face as fresh blood spurts out of him and a large bunch of his teeth fall to the floor. How? How is this possible? Everyone stands in their spot dumbfounded and on the verge of going insane. Chapter 11. Begging for mercy. In the fighter 4 dan pigu realm, one's muscles, bones, and even skins will be tempered, causing one's strength to soar rapidly. The difference between it and Junchi realm is like heaven to earth. Yet, the brat in Junchi realm is able to cause a pigu realm expert to vomit blood with just a single slap. Everyone found the sight unbelievable. Besides, wasn't this fellow the last in the sparring during the teacher qualification examination? Why is he so strong now? It must just be a coincidence. Do not fear him. Chen Biao howls. One of the teachers also agrees with what Chen Biao says and charges over. Just like Li Yuan, he has reached Pigu realm advanced stage. His muscles are just like metal tendons and his skin is just like a metal plate, giving an impression of indestructibility. You shall fall to the ground. Stepping forward, this teacher lifts his eyebrow and prepares to smack him with his palm. Pa. The compression of the air results in explosive sonic booms. Facing the other party's ruthless blows, Zhongxian remains calm. With his forefinger and middle finger together, he strikes upwards at a slanted angle. Pada. The teacher, whose body is like a metal plate, feels a slight pain at his armpits before his vision went dark and he collapses onto the floor. What? In 2 strikes, 2 fighter 4 Dan teachers were defeated. The remaining 2 teachers, including Chen Biao, knows that the teacher whom they had been looking down upon isn't as simple as they thought to be. Let's attack together. With a loud roar, Chen Biao raises his fist and charges over. However, even before he made a move, Zhongxian suddenly appears right before him. His left hand grabs his face while his right hand pokes him lightly. Putong. A pain in the abdomen and Chen Biao collapses to the floor as well. The moment his body hits the floor, the last teacher whom he teamed up with also falls to the ground and convulses as though he is epileptic. You. How did you know all of our Ming men? With a spurt of fresh blood, Chen Biao stares at the fellow in front of him in fright. He finally understands why, even though the other party's strength is far from them, the results ended in the direct opposite. Their opponent found the Ming men of their cultivation the moment he strikes. How could they have possibly expected this and guard against it? All cultivators would tend to have a Ming men as their weakness, and the moment it is struck, even if the person striking is a child, it would be possible to kill the person. However, Ming men is the core of a human, thus cultivators would protect it carefully. Even the closest kin would not know where their Ming men is. Although Zhongxian does not possess strong cultivation, he seems to know where their Ming men is and strikes at their vitals directly. How could they resist against someone like that? Hearing his words of astonishment, Zhongxian smiles without explaining. Of course, it is through the Library of Heaven's Path. Not only does the Library of Heaven's Path allows him to see through flaws in one's cultivation techniques, he is also able to see the personal problems of the cultivator and his Ming men. They are all written in detail on it. Knowing his opponent's Ming men and the weaknesses in their skills, even if Zhongxian transcended from Earth and still isn't very familiar with the skills of this foreign world, it is still a simple task to subdue the 4 of them. Since you all chose to accept the bet, you all should have prepared yourself for the consequences of losing the bet. If you all had obediently allowed me to slap you all, we wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. Zhongxian chuckles. Zhongxian, you don't need to get gleeful over it. I don't know what kind of despicable methods you used to find out where our Ming men is to wound me, but as the least experienced teacher, you attacked other teachers in public. Just by this alone, I am able to send a complaint letter to the academy to have your teacher qualification revoked. Chen Biao howls. There are clear levels between teachers in the academy. For lower-level teachers to make a move against higher-level teachers is an immoral action. Zhongxian is young, and he also scored 0 for his teacher qualification examination. Thus, he is considered as one of the least qualified teacher in the academy. For him to wound 4 people who are more qualified than him, if the academy were to be informed of this incident, there would definitely be an uproar. His teacher qualification license being revoked is a small matter. It might be possible for him to be directly expelled. Why? Since you can't defeat me using martial arts, you want to try the rules to suppress me? Despite facing such threats, Zhongxian doesn't seem to be bothered by it. Indeed, Li Yuan is also thinking about this. Excitement and cruelty flash across his eyes. If you obediently kneel before us now and allow us to beat you up, perhaps when our moods lift, we won't report the incident. Otherwise, prepare to be fired. After being fired from your position, without your identity as a teacher protecting you, no one will say anything even if you are killed. Another teacher howls. In Tianxian Kingdom, the teachers of an academy are of high social status. The moment they lose their job, their social status would also fall correspondingly. If so, the few of them would really dare to make a move to kill him. Since you all want to deal with this using rules, alright, I will also deal with this using rules then. With a tranquil gaze, he walks a few steps to Chen Biao and says, Chen Biao Larosha, you secretly used Elder Chen Ming's treasure to please your concubine. 3 months ago, you embezzled from the school's fund to buy a house for her. A month ago, when you broke Elder Liu Quan's most beloved porcelain, you pushed the blame onto a student, causing him to be expelled. Do I need to be recounting all of these matters in front of the school leaders? You. Chen Biao's eyes narrow as his plump body twitches uncontrollably. An inconceivable fear surges through his entire body. He looks as though he has seen a ghost and is on the verge of going insane. He committed all of those without leaving behind any traces, so no one knew about it. Even his colleagues, Li Yuan and the others, aren't aware, so this fellow, how did he know about it? Furthermore, with such details. Li Yuan Larosha, did the female student, whom you robbed of her dignity that resulted in her suicide from 3 years ago, return as a vengeful spirit to look for you? A few days ago, you grew an acne on your back. Perhaps, this could be her seeking you for revenge. Ignoring Chen Biao's terrified expression, Zhong Xian turns to look at Li Yuan. Ah! Hearing those words, Li Yuan hurriedly backs away from fright as his face drains of all color. 3 years ago, he was enchanted by a beautiful female student and he humiliated her, causing her to commit suicide from the shame. This incident was very covert and except for him, no one knew about it. Due to his conscience acting up against him, throughout the 3 years, he often dreamt of the other party coming to reap his life as a vengeful spirit. Furthermore, half a month ago, a giant acne in the shape of a human palm grew on his back, scaring him out of his wits. After hearing Zhong Xian recount this event with great details, his entire body trembles uncontrollably out of overwhelming fear. Putong. His knees lost his strength and he kneels onto the floor. A sudden pungent smell wafts around the room. To think a Fighter 4 Dan advanced stage expert would be frightened to the point of peeing out in public. Du Chun Larosha, you stole your good brother's business and even poisoned him to death through toxic wine. Although this incident was inconclusive back then, if rumors were to spread out now, do you think that you can continue being a teacher? By Lin Larosha, there isn't any major flaws in your actions. However, due to your interest in antiques, you have accepted many gifts from the student. If I'm not wrong, the ancient jade ring which you wear should be a gift from back then when a student had something to request of you. As for what the request is about and who the student is, do you still need me to go into details? Looking at the 2 remaining teachers, Zhong Xian states, You are a devil. You aren't human. The remaining 2 teachers are also all frightened out of their wits. This time, their stares are full of fear. Those things that they have done, although it might not be impeccable, they were confident that no outsider would know of it. Yet, how could this fellow be so aware of it? It is as though he is a specter. When he defeated them through his skills, they only felt ashamed, but not fear. However, when he revealed all of their secrets, they were truly terrified. It is as though the multiple clothes on them were instantly ripped to shreds, causing them to stand nude in front of everyone else. They can already imagine that when the information leaks out, whether they could remain as teachers is already a small affair. In the worst-case scenario, they might be sent to the teacher court and be killed on the spot. We were wrong. Zhong Xian Larosha, as a great man, don't bear grudges against minor figures like us. Please spare us. Trembling, they unwillingly beg for mercy. I am lazy to bother with what you all did in the past, just stop pissing me off in the future. Also, if you all don't change and continue committing more vile actions, I won't mind interfering to ensure that you all would receive punishments proportionate to your crime. Zhong Xian waves his hand in disdain. Actually, if these people didn't get on his nerves, he wouldn't be bothered with them. The Library of Heaven's Path is able to peer into all of one's flaws. Even personality and past actions are counted in its midst, not to mention that this is only a small portion of the entire book. However, he isn't the savior of the world, so no matter what they did in the past and do in the future, as long as they do not cross his path, he wouldn't be concerned with them. What these people should have never done is to find trouble with him and make things difficult for him. Since you made things difficult for me, I will show you what death looks like. So that, you would never dare to think of doing the same the second time. We don't dare, we will never dare to. Zhongxian Laosha, these are the identity tokens that you wanted. Take as much as you want to. Hearing that he would not expose their past actions, Chen Biao and the rest heaves a sigh of relief. Chapter 12, Emperor Bloodline. An hour later, Zhongxian walks out from the logistics branch and his eyes twinkle in excitement. If it had been his previous self, he would have ended up being taken advantage of today. However, with the Library of Heaven's Path, his life took a complete turn towards another direction. Perhaps, it is a blessing for me to transcend over. This kind of exciting life is what I hope for. Zhongxian clenches his fist and exhales a breath of air. In his previous life, he was only a librarian living a plain and simple life that only rotates around the library and his home. Even if he were to continue on like that, he would only continue claiming his salary and continue with his aimless life. However, things are different here. With a great gift package known as the Library of Heaven's Path, perhaps he would be able to walk further and become stronger. He would be able to live an entirely new and exciting life. At this moment, Zhongxian has finally become a part of the world. He no longer struggles in his heart over the dilemma between his homeland and this world. Don't pull me. Let me die, I want to die. Just when he is secretly celebrating, he hears a piercing wail from a distance not too far away. It sounds like a frenzied bull, causing one's heart to tear in agony. Turning around, he sees a fatty howling that he would charge towards the man-made lake in the academy and commit suicide by jumping into it. Behind the fatty, no one tries to stop him. The fatty himself also doesn't charge forward despite howling non-stop. Suddenly, he turns around and grabs the palm of a student beside him and puts it on himself, making it seem as though the student is pulling him back. Then, he continues howling. Don't pull me, let me die. I don't want to live anymore. Everyone is speechless. That's too shameless. Zhongxian shakes his head. This fatty, despite not wanting to die, insists on portraying a fake image of someone restraining himself from committing suicide. He is really shameless. Knowing that this fellow can't possibly die, he can't be bothered with him anymore. Instead, he walks towards his own classroom. Before he could walk far, the howling voice seems to close in on him as the ground tremors. Following which, a pair of thick arms hugs his leg. Teacher, I'm begging you, please accept me as your disciple. They all scorn me because of my size and reject me. The fatty bursts into tears. Let go. Zhongxian is speechless. Isn't this fellow too eccentric? Rushing over to beg him to accept him as his disciple upon seeing that he is a teacher, Zhongxian has never seen such a person in his life. Teacher, I will only let go if you accept me. Tears and snot flow freely from the multiple faucets of the fatty. His voice sounds so sorrowful that even those who are watching from the side start to sympathize with him. Today, I have already visited over 10 teachers, but none of them were willing to accept me. This teacher over here, seeing how pitiful I am, please accept me. The examinations among the students would also affect a teacher's evaluation. A plump person like him would tend to have trouble in his battles and his agility. Most renowned teachers would be unwilling to accept him. If you want me to accept you, you would have to at least show me your abilities. What do you expect to achieve by hugging my leg? Zhongxian says. He possesses the Library of Heaven's Path, so he should have no trouble recruiting students. If this person turns out to be mediocre, Zhongxian would not accept him as his disciple. Teacher, you have to accept me as your disciple. I am quite capable. The fatty looks up hesitantly before slowly loosening his arms. We have to see before we know whether you are capable or not. There is no use saying so much. Seeing how he is still slightly reluctant to release his grip, Zhongxian kicks him away scornfully. What is this? It would be one thing for a female student hugging his leg. However, not only is he a male, he is also a fatty. He shivers just by the thought of it. Fine. Look at my abilities. The fatty doesn't feel scorned. He stands up and surveys the surrounding. Then, he carries a few concrete blocks over from a short distance away. After which, lifting one up with his hands, he smashes his head into it. Pang! The concrete block shatters. After which, he carries a few more concrete block and shatters it using his elbow and leg. Without an exception, they all shatter. This fellow may seem plump, but he is skilled in Honglian martial arts. Ignoring his Honglian, Zhongxian is currently looking through the book that is automatically compiled in his mind. The skills trained through Honglian can also be considered as a type of martial arts. The moment the fatty displays his prowess, the library began to compile his information. Yuan Dao, a wandering cultivator in Dihuang City, Fighter 1 Danjushi Realm Intermediate. Flaws, 18 aspects. Number 1. The ancient emperor bloodline in his body has yet to be activated. Number 2. His foundations are too weak. The martial arts he trains in, emperor bloodline? Looking at the records on the book, Zhongxian is taken aback. After merging with the memories of the previous owner of the body, he knows that in this world, bloodline and one's innate body is very important. As long as one possesses either one of the two along with a suitable method to utilize it, their cultivation will soar by leaps and bounds in the future, causing their strength to increase exponentially. There are many types of innate bodies such as pure yin body, pure yang body, immaculate body, golden body. There are also many types of bloodlines such as ancient bloodlines, new bloodlines, inheritances, and mutations. Once found, every single one of them would become a target competed over by countless teachers. The emperor bloodline which the fatty possesses is one of the ancient bloodlines. It is said that when those who possess such bloodline reach the peak of their cultivation, their body would be impenetrable, no objects in the world would be able to break through their defenses. It is one of the most powerful bloodlines among defense-based bloodlines. This inconspicuous, fat and shameless fellow would actually possess an ancient bloodline? His ancient bloodline has yet to be activated. From the looks of it, this fellow doesn't seem to be aware of it as well. A glint flashes through Zhongxian's eyes. Of all types of bloodlines, ancient bloodlines are quite powerful. For this fellow to not be accepted after visiting a dozen of teachers, it doesn't mean that they are unable to recognize such a bloodline. Rather, his bloodline has yet to be activated, causing him to be just like any other normal people. Not mentioning how other people aren't able to discern his bloodline, probably even he himself doesn't know about it. However, even if he doesn't know, he does have the potential in this aspect. His defensive abilities are much stronger than the others, and that's the reason why he chose to train in this kind of punchbag martial arts. I must accept this fellow under my tutelage. His eyes twinkle. The entire academy might not even witness a single student possessing ancient bloodline throughout a course of multiple years. For such a good bud to appear before him, how can he possibly allow him to escape? Not bad. I will accept you as my student. Come, acknowledge me as your teacher. Zhongxian suppresses the jubilation in his heart and throws an identity token over to him with a calm face. Teacher, are you really going to accept me? This is great. The fatty seems to have taken quite a few mental blows throughout the day. Upon hearing that a teacher is willing to accept him, he is so excited that he cuts his finger without second thoughts and squeezes a blood droplet on it. It seems that the standard of the teacher determines the standard of the students he would accept. When the teacher is trash, the student would also be trash. At this moment, a cold scorn sounds out. Turning around, Zhongxian sees a cold and arrogant young man walking over. There is a beautiful lady walking beside the young man. Her pitch-black silky hair flows down her shoulders, her pale skin has a creamy texture to it and her eyes captivate the gaze of those looking into it. Shongbin. Shunbai are you? Upon seeing the two of them, two names immediately float into his head. In the entire academy, there are probably no one who would be unaware of Shunbai are you. She doesn't have any unique background, but she is publicly acknowledged as a beautiful teacher. Even the school bell would pale in comparison when compared to her. It wouldn't have meant anything if she was all looks. The crux of it is that she is skilled in teaching as well. Despite being in this academy for less than a year, she has already become one of the most famous teachers in the academy. Noble, elegant, beautiful and intelligent, she attracts the frenzied pursuit of quite a few teachers. Zhongxian's previous self is also one of her pursuers. However, the previous Zhongxian was too much of a failure. Not mentioning his weak cultivation, he is also the last in all kinds of examinations. Due to his low self-esteem, even though he is interested in her, he has never talked to the goddess of his heart, needless to say, caught her. This young man is called Shong Bin, and he is the grandson of the Academy's elder Shong. He is also one of her pursuers, and he has used his identity to suppress the other pursuers. He seems to have received word from some source that Zhong Xian is also interested in Shun Bai Yu, prompting him to insult him whenever they meet, sometimes even resorting to physical violence. However, Shun Bai Yu doesn't seem to be interested in him. All along, she has been cold to everyone, as though she isn't interested in anyone else, leaving Shong Bin distressed and helpless. Who are you insulting as trash? Hearing Shong Bin's unrestrained sarcasm, Zhong Xian doesn't get angry and turns around to look over. Trash is insulting to you. Shong Bin smiles contemptuously. Oh, so trash is insulting to me. So smelly, so smelly. Zhong Xian waves his hand in front of his nose, putting on a disgusted expression. You, only now does Shong Bin reacts. Being made fun of by the worst teacher in the academy, his face turns red. Emperor bloodline - Longxi bloodline, in ancient China, they believe in looking at one's facial features to determine one's future. Naturally, there's a face for one destined for nobility as well. One of these noble faces is this Longxi face, which is usually termed as the face of an emperor. This fellow may seem plump, but he is skilled in Honglian martial arts. Honglian, is a way of training and literally means training through brute strength. There are 3 main ways of training in martial arts: Wunlian, Wulian, and Honglian. According to Baidu, the 3 different way of training will lead the martial artists to different peaks. Honglian refers to a method which uses smashing of one's body onto a hard object in order to train their body parts. Even today, Honglian is still used as a way of training by a few, like the iron head skills. They smash their head on solid objects from young. Chapter 13. Shameless student. Upon hearing those words, the ice-cold Shun Bai Yu smiles faintly. Although this roundabout manner of insulting another means nothing on earth, it is an incomparably novel concept here. Seeing the expression on his goddess, Shong Bin feels that he is being mocked. His face flushes in a moment and pales in the next. However, in front of the female goddess, he is determined to uphold decorum, thus he doesn't dare to attack Zhong Xian directly. Why? Is there something wrong with my words? Suppressing his anger, Shong Bin sneers. There isn't a single person who doesn't know what your standards are in the entire academy. This fatty came to my classroom previously. Fat like a pig, he only knows how to defend and nothing else. The strength behind his fist is only a mere 15 kilograms. He must be either the first or second from the bottom in the entrance examination, so if he isn't trash, what is he? Even though he can't teach Zhong Xian a lesson physically, he is resolute to strike a blow onto him through his words. The first from the bottom in the entrance examination? Zhong Xian only paid attention to the emperor bloodline and wasn't aware of such a situation. He turns around to look at the fatty. Who says that I am the first from the bottom? The fatty retorts confidently. Then, he scratches his head in embarrassment. I am only the 9,997th place. 9,997th place? Only. A faint spell afflicts Zhong Xian and he almost vomits blood. Hongtian Academy only accepts 10,000 students every year. Although it recruits so many people every year, there are always several students who fail to report due to several reasons. 9,997th place, it is almost as good as being in the last place, alright. Besides, with such a low ranking, how can you still be so confident? Zhong Xian feels as though he hasn't fully woken up. It can't be that you accept anyone who is a student. Shong Bin sneers once again. Then, flinging his sleeves, an arrogant look appears on his face as he declares, I have a clear requirement when accepting students. I don't accept anyone who is below the 500th in rank. The teacher who is first from the bottom and the student who is first from the bottom. How compatible. Haha. Are you done talking? Towards his mockery, Zhong Xian simply shakes his head. Now that you're done, you can leave. Previously, he has examined Yuan Dao clearly with the Library of Heaven's Path. That fatty is a wandering cultivator, so it is normal for him to know no cultivation technique and martial arts. As long as he finds a way to activate his emperor bloodline, his cultivation would definitely soar by leaps and bounds. If it was someone else, being mocked to such an extent, they would definitely be trembling from anger. However, this fellow doesn't even bat an eyelid to it. For Xiangbin's attack to land on thin air, his face turns even uglier. It seems that a rotten wood cannot be carved. After a cold humph, Xiangbin looks at Shun Bai Yu beside him and says, "Bai Yu Larosha, let's go. If we stay with this kind of trash for too long, we would be contaminated by them." Hearing Xiangbin's direct sarcasm, Shun Bai Yu frowns and chooses not to leave with him. Instead, she turns around, "Zhongxian Larosha." Her voice is like an aureole, clear and enchanting, stirring up complex emotions in its listeners. Achem. Zhongxian didn't expect that the academy's prettiest teacher would initiate a conversation with him. He is taken aback. Although the previous time you didn't score so well for your teacher qualification examination, do not give up on yourself. Work hard and you will find yourself rewarded in the end. Shun Bai Yu nods her head. From her point of view, Zhongxian accepting one of the worst students means that he doesn't hold any hope and has given up on himself. Towards this ex-pursuer of hers, even if she doesn't fancy him, she doesn't hope to see him wallowing in his failures. Thank you for your advice. He knows that the other party is truly concerned for him. Zhongxian nods his head and explains, this student, although he might not be anything now, he could turn out to be a jade. As long as I guide him properly, it isn't impossible for him to shine. Shun Bai Yu doesn't speak any further and instead starts to walk away. She thinks that Zhongxian's explanation is only an excuse. Given Yuan Dao's size and his lack of basic knowledge at his age, there is bound to be a limit to his future achievements. Darn it. Seeing the goddess of his heart talking to the worst teacher in the academy and even motivating him, Xiangbin's face distorts savagely. The inferno in his heart rages as he stares at Zhongxian coldly before following behind Shun Bai Yu. Bai Yu, it is better for you to avoid contact with this kind of people, it will sully your flawless disposition. Xiong Larosha, I am a little tired today and would like to rest. I hope that you do not follow me. Before Xiangbin could finish his words, Shun Bai Yu turns around to leave. Damn it, Zhongxian, just you wait. I will definitely get back at you for this. He watches as his goddess walk further and further away before she disappears from sight. At this moment, he has already directed all of his anger towards Zhongxian. In his opinion, if it wasn't for that inauspicious fellow, the goddess would definitely have dinner with him. How could it be possible for her to turn around to leave? Since you have acknowledged me as your teacher, you must know where my classroom is. After the both of them left, Zhongxian turns his attention away from them and calls out to the fatty. Great. The fatty hurriedly stands up and smiles at him. Teacher, now that I am your student, can you tell me which teacher are you in the academy? Hearing his words, Zhongxian grabs his forehead. This fellow, to think that he acknowledged whichever teacher he manages to set his eyes upon, not even clarifying Zhongxian's identity beforehand. I am Zhongxian, Zhongxian says. Zhongxian Larosha? The Zhong Larosha who scored first from the bottom for the teacher qualification examination, not to mention a 0. At this moment, Fatty finally realizes who he acknowledged as his teacher. The fats on his body tremble as his lip twitches. All he is lacking now is tears. That's me. Zhongxian nods his head. Ah. That, Zhong Larosha. Fatty scratches his head. Seeing how I am weak and dim-witted, not to mention fat, why don't you take me out from your lessons? Zhongxian. Teacher, I am being serious over here. The two teachers from a moment ago have also said it. If you don't expel me from your tutelage, your reputation would be sullied. I am afraid of pulling you down with me. Fatty continues. I am not afraid of being pulled down. Besides, now that we have verified our relationship through the identity token, I only have a sentence for you. You will live as my student and die as my student. Stop talking about useless things here. Zhongxian waves his hand. Fatty's face distorts and he is on the verge of crying. Due to his weakness, he wanted to acknowledge a good student so that his future could be boundless. However, never would he dream that the last place student would be paired with the last place teacher. Why is my life so difficult? Alright, this is my classroom. Now, claim your bedding and remember to come to lessons punctually tomorrow, Zhongxian says impatiently. This classroom. Looking at the size of the classroom, Fatty finds himself on the verge of tears yet again. Even the locations where he underwent the entrance examination previously were much bigger than this. A classroom of this size probably can't hold many students. Teacher, if I don't come tomorrow, would you expel me? Fatty is still bearing illusions in his mind. Expel? That I won't. However, I will throw you into the lake which you wanted to jump into to feed the turtles. Zhongxian nods his head seriously. Didn't I say it? You will live as my student and die as my student. Relax, I will fulfill the role of my teacher and bury you properly. Teacher. Before Zhongxian could finish his words, he was interrupted by Fatty. With a serious face and unwavering will in his eyes, he says, "What time do we start lessons tomorrow? I will come in advance to clean the classroom. It is my honor to meet such a great teacher. In the future, no matter who wants to admit me as their disciple, I will reject them firmly and reprimand them." Zhongxian. Initially, Zhongxian thought that he himself is shameless. However, he didn't expect that his student would be even more shameless than he is. Chapter 14. Cultivation Technique. It wasn't easy for Zhongxian arrange everything properly with Fatty and send him away. Only then did he realize that the sun is already setting in the west and it is about to turn dark soon. Looks like I only have 5 students. He shakes his head. Today is the last day to recruit students. Judging from the current time, it is probably the end of the recruitment. Initially, he thought that he wouldn't even recruit a student. He didn't expect that he would end up pulling 5 students in. For a teacher who scored the worst in the teacher qualification examination, it isn't a bad result. Closing the doors to the classroom, Zhongxian follows the path back to his room based on his memory. As a teacher of the academy, he has a dormitory room of his own. However, it is only a small room of around a dozen meters square large. Soon, he reaches the dormitory. Pushing the door open and looking at the sight within, he couldn't help but sigh. His previous self really had it bad. Not mentioning how the room is small, it is extremely humid. Mold is growing on some of the bedding and such. He really has no idea how that fellow managed to survive like this. Let's forget about this first. Lessons are going to start tomorrow, so I have to first ascertain my level of cultivation and try training a bit. Since he isn't hungry now anyway, Zhongxian follows the method he recalls in his memories and sits with crossed legs on the bed. As a transcender, although he has inherited the memories of his previous self and isn't foreign to cultivating, he is still quite excited at the thought of growing stronger. After he is done with the recruitment, it is about time for him to solidify his cultivation. No matter what, in this world, strength reigns supreme. The Library of Heaven's Path is capable of identifying others' Mingmen and flaws, allowing him to easily break through the defenses of opponents of the same level. However, if his enemy is much stronger than he is, even if he is able to identify the gaps in their attacks, he is unable to keep up with them speed-wise. Before he could injure his opponent, he might already have been severed into multiple pieces like a lab rat. Thus, even though the Library of Heaven's Path is formidable, it doesn't ensure his invincibility. If he wants to become stronger, cultivation is the way to go. The cultivation technique of my previous self is called the Hongtian 9 Dan formula. It is a skill created by the founder of Hongtian Academy. The skill consists of 9 dans, with each of the dan corresponding to the cultivation realm of the cultivator. He recalls the skill memorized in his head. There are 9 dans to a cultivator and every level opens up a new realm. The higher one climbs, the harder it is to cultivate. Hongtian 9 Dan formula is one of the most common cultivation technique in Hongtian Academy. It also consists of 9 dans which correspond to the cultivator's 9 dans. Right now, I am the weakest of all of the teachers in the academy. In the academy, almost all teachers have reached Fighter 4 Dan, leaving him to be the only 3 Dan. Thus, he has to train harder to catch up to them. Following the exhalation method in his memory, he focuses his concentration. In an instant, Countless bright particles appear before him as he slowly inhales and exhales while absorbing them. Gradually, the zhenqi within his dantian enriches. After cultivating for an unknown period of time, Zhongxian opens his eyes and shakes his head. This is way too slow. Even though he has inherited the memories of his previous self, his consciousness still remains that of an earthling. He finds it difficult to be sitting still to cultivate for long periods of time. Especially upon viewing the process of the gathering of zhenqi, he feels even more helpless. Gathering zhenqi refers to the action of pulling and gathering in the spirit particles in the air and suppressing them together. Just like the stacking of logs, they would be accumulated to form a river. This is an extremely huge project. There are some cultivators who persist in it every day without fail and fills up their dantian within 3 years to break into higher realms. It is a work that requires accumulation over time. To cultivate so blandly for multiple years, you might as well kill him. Oh, that's right. Although the Hongtian 9 Dan formula is the most popular cultivation technique in the academy, it isn't the strongest one. I can use the Library of Heaven's path to seek out its flaws and find a way to correct them. Once I correct the flaws, won't my training be much more efficient? A thought pops into his mind. There are different tiers to cultivation technique as well. Better cultivation technique allows one to cultivate faster while the weak ones cause one to cultivate at a slower pace. Could it be that the better cultivation technique has fewer flaws, causing the difference between the two? Other people might be unable to improve their cultivation technique, but Zhongxian is different. With the Library of Heaven's path in hand, he could make use of it to seek out the flaws in it and think of a way to correct them. If he were to create a cultivation technique where even the Library of Heaven's path is unable to find a flaw in, won't his cultivation speed soar significantly? At this point, Zhongxian stands up, places the Hongtian 9 Dan formula in his palm and starts flipping through it. Just as he expected, the library in his mind jolts and a book with the exact same name appears in it. Opening the book gently, he realized that there are countless flaws on the Hongtian 9 Dan formula on it, numbering more than 1,000. This is the skill that I was training with a moment ago. Zhongxian is shocked. Just a simple 3 Dan and there are countless flaws in it. Isn't this way too much? It is just like eating a vegetable full of worms. Zhongxian feels that it is already incredible that his cultivation hasn't disappeared after training in that skill. What about the other cultivation techniques? As a teacher, there are quite a few books in his room: Supreme 4 Inscription, Heaven Meridian Technique, Lotus Acupoint Breakthrough Might. As he casually picks each of them and flips through them, the library would automatically compile a corresponding book on it that records all kinds of flaws in the skill. For these skills, the flaws that are recorded exceeds 3,000. That is even scarier than the Hongtian 9 Dan formula. Won't I die out of exhaustion while searching for a way to correct all of those? After taking a look, Zhongxian feels like he is about to go mad from frustration. It is hard to find a correct path when there are more than 1,000 flaws in a secret manual. It is like having 1,000 different paths before you and each of which have countless divergence to them. Even if the Library of Heaven's path is capable of ascertaining whether the path is right or not, finding the most accurate path would definitely tire him to death. Right now, my cultivation is at Fighter 3 Dan Zhenqi Pinnacle, just a little bit away from breaking through. Right now, I only have to find the flaw in the secret manual regarding this aspect and correct it. Upon seeing the countless mistakes in Hongtian 9 Dan formula, he knows that it is impossible for him to resolve them in a short period of time. Thus, he flips the manual to the very last page. It is difficult to train in the Fighter 3 Dan, but the last step to breaking through is significantly easier. As he expected, there are only 10 flaws in this page. Error in the method in sensing the spirit in the air, error in manipulating the flow of spirit particles, error in guiding the gathered spirit to flow through the Yangwei meridian. The 10 flaws that written here are detailed clearly. The Library of Heaven's path only records flaws. It doesn't list methods to resolving them. It isn't easy to search for the correct path one should take. Right. It seems that the parts of the Fighter 3 Dan breakthrough method in the other books have different flaws from this. A thought flashes through his mind as he recalls what is written in the other secret manuals. Thus, He flips through the other books to view the portion of it about breaking through the Zhenqi realm. It is indeed as he recalls. Although there are mistakes in those as well, their errors are in different aspects. If it isn't demarcated as an error, then it should be correct. Zhong Xian's eyes lit up. He immediately grabs pen and paper and jots down the correct portion of each of them. Soon, a new cultivation method appears before him. Let's see if there are errors in this. With a faint smile, he grabs the book that he had just written and the Library of Heaven's Path jolts once more. A similar book appears, just that this time, there's only one error in it. After researching for a moment longer, he corrects this final error and uses the Library of Heaven's Path to ascertain once again. Indeed, all of the errors have been filled up and it is in its perfect form. This is the most precise method to break through Fighter 3 Dan realm. Let me give it a try. Looking at the contents he wrote himself, Zhong Xian nods his head excitedly. He hurriedly gets into position and starts to cultivate. Relax my body and allow my pores to open, as though I am sinking into a tub of spirit air. Every single pore of mine is a complete life form by itself, breathing by its own will. TZZZZZZZZZZZZZZ. Cultivating through this method, although he isn't very used to it at the start, it didn't take long for him to feel the spirit in the surrounding surge into him. The spirit absorbed by a single pore may not be much, but when all of the pores of a body are undergoing the same process concurrently, the absorption speed is one to behold. The spirit in the air gathers like a flowing river, forming a giant flood in his body and rushes towards his dantian. Boom! An explosion echoes from his spirit sea. Initially, he was just a step away to breaking through his bottleneck. At the current moment, Zhenqi overflows from his dantian and courses through his entire body, enriching his muscles and bones, generating a refreshing sensation. Figure 4 Dan, Pigu realm. This is too fast. Zhong Xian's eyes widen. Based on what is recorded on the Hongtian 9 Dan formula, he would need to take at least 3 to 5 months to break through, and this would still require a certain amount of luck. After slightly modifying the skill to correct the flaws on it, how long did he take in comparison? 10 minutes? 5 minutes? Probably, he didn't even take 3 minutes to successfully achieve a breakthrough. Furthermore, despite only correcting the breakthrough method for Fighter 3 Dan Pinnacle, the purity of the Zhenqi he absorbed is incomparably pure, containing much more power as compared to the ones he cultivated in the past. If the Zhenqi he cultivated in the past is sloppy mud, then this wave is a clear spring water without any impurities in it. There are also different tiers to Zhenqi: superior, intermediate and inferior. The higher the quality, the more clear it would be and the further one would be able to climb in the future. In the past, the Zhenqi he cultivates is murky and probably of inferior quality. The ones he are cultivating is so clear that you could see through it. Most probably, it is Zhenqi of superior quality. Didn't they say that, if one wants to cultivate superior Zhenqi, they would require a god or saint cultivation technique? There are different tiers to a cultivation technique as well, namely god, saint, spirit, phantom and mortal. In each tier, they are classified further into inferior, intermediate, superior and pinnacle. Based on rumors among cultivators, one would need at least a saint cultivation technique in order to cultivate superior Zhenqi. Hongtian 9 Dan formula is the lowest mortal cultivation technique, so how could it cultivate Zhenqi of such quality? It is the Library of Heaven's Path. Zhong Xian clenches his fist. He is still cultivating the Hongtian 9 Dan formula, but as he managed to avoid the mistakes recorded on it and followed the correct path upwards, he is able to gather superior Zhenqi. It seems that, what is recorded on the Library of Heaven's Path is accurate. The Hongtian 9 Dan formula is indeed too far from perfection. If so, with the help of the Library of Heaven's Path, could it be possible for me to create a book of saint or even god cultivation technique? Zhong Xian's eyes twinkle. Chapter 15, Heaven's Path Divine Art. Needless to say, Hongtian Academy, even those top sects might not even have god or saint cultivation technique. Besides, even they have it, it is hidden deep inside the sect and normal people would be unable to obtain it. What he wants to do is to create such a skill so that his training would be more efficient so as to hasten the rate of the rise of his cultivation by leaps and bounds. I don't have any 4-dan cultivation method. Let me go to the Teacher Compendium Pavilion to take a look. Practicing the Hongtian 9-dan formula, the cultivator can only retrieve the secret manual for the next realm after breaking through their current realm. At this moment, he only has the cultivation method for 3-dan. He has yet to see the one for 4-dan. Walking out, the sun hasn't set for too long and there are still quite a few passers-by on the road. The bright moonlight reflects on the surface of the pavement, dyeing it with a layer of silver. A few couples who had just tasted the forbidden fruit are snuggling under the tree as they whisper sweet nothings to one another. Even so, the surroundings have a serene atmosphere. Zhong Xian didn't bother himself with these. Instead, he hastens his footsteps and soon, a giant pavilion appears before him. The Compendium Pavilion is split into 2 main sectors, teacher and student. Within it lies the compendium of all kinds of secret manuals and cultivation techniques. It is one of the most important locations in the entire academy. Elder Mo. Walking to the entrance, he bows to an elderly who is sitting at a proximity from the great door. Elder Mo is one of the guardians of the Compendium Pavilion. It is unknown what realm he has reached, but it is said that he is ranked among the top in the academy in terms of his strength. However, as he hasn't fought for many years, no one could tell his actual strength for sure. You're here. You have reached Fighter 4-dan? Elder Mo looks over and strokes his sparse beard. It is just luck. Zhong Xian doesn't try to conceal the fact that he has reached Fighter 4-dan. Good. Good. Train harder, the academy still needs young blood like you. Elder Mo nods his head in satisfaction. Yes. Zhong Xian doesn't continue speaking and instead, lifts his leg to walk into the room. The moment he leaves, Elder Mo shakes his head and laments, he is a good child, just that he is lacking a little in talent and is slightly too slow in his cultivation. Other cultivators take around 2 years to break through Fighter 3-dan, whereas Zhong Xian took a whole 3 years to do so. His talent is indeed subpar. Upon reaching Fighter 4-dan, if he were to train properly, he should still be able to become an average teacher. Just that, I hope he doesn't score too badly for him teacher qualification examination the next time. After muttering for a bit, Elder Mo doesn't go on any further and shuts his eyes once more. Zhong Xian is one of the more polite ones among the numerous young teachers. He doesn't really like him, but neither does he dislike him. It is just that he finds it lamentable for him to be lacking in talent. Oblivious to the mutterings of Elder Mo, Zhong Xian walks into the Compendium Pavilion. Although the Hongtian Academy's Compendium Pavilion is of significant size, nowhere paling in comparison to the working location of his previous life, it is still much smaller than the Library of Heaven's Path in his mind. The two aren't even on the same level. He walks quickly to the cultivation technique section and to the 4th row of it. Indeed, the Hongtian 9-dan formula 4-dan cultivation technique is in here. Reaching out to grab it, he casually flips through it. Who? A similar secret manual appears in his mind. Taking a look, it is around the same as the one for 3-dan, there are more than 1,000 flaws. There are other secret manuals here as well. Let me take a look at them as well. After the prior experience with breaking through, Zhong Xian doesn't focus on the flaws in it and instead looks towards the bookshelf before him. On the bookshelf of the 4th row, there is an amazing amount of different kinds of cultivation technique manuals. They are all cultivation techniques for 4-dan and there is quite plenty of notes and explanations in them left behind by predecessors. Just by a rough look, there are around a few thousand of them. If it is someone else, their eyes would definitely blur from the sight. After all, there are so many books with countless notes left in them. Furthermore, some of the theories for the cultivation techniques are at ends with each other, so it is hard to gauge whether which one is the right one. If one were to randomly cultivate without knowing better, it is possible for them to go berserk. However, Zhong Xian is different. Possessing the Library of Heaven's Path, he is capable of telling which one is the right one. He doesn't hesitate to grab a book and flip through it. Who? A similar book appears in his mind. Zhong Xian doesn't stop and picks up the next one. He isn't browsing through them nor picking them. Rather, He is trying to increase the number of books in the library of Heaven's Path so that he could derive a more precise cultivation method. Hualala. The sound of flipping pages fills the entire room. A weak will. Impatient and unrealistic. Hearing those words, Elder Mo frowns. Since Zhongxian has already chosen to cultivate in the Hongtian 9 Dan formula, then he shouldn't think about any other skills. He should make use of the time to copy the formula for the 4 Dan so that he can analyze it and start training. Although it is possible to make use the strengths of others to make up for the flaws of one, the more miscellaneous knowledge one reads, the easier it is for one to get impatient and rash. In the end, it is a small thing if he achieves nothing in the end. If things go wrong, it is very possible for him to go berserk and ruin his cultivation. 30 years ago, a talented genius blessed with great talents who thought he is much greater than others insisted on looking through the various cultivation techniques to create an ultimate one tailored to him. In the end, due to reading too many manuals, he became uncertain of the route he should walk on and his cultivation went berserk. As an individual, he became insane as well. Being greedy would cause indigestion. This is the absolute truth and reality. For him to take 3 years to break through Zhenqi realm, his talent is apparent. With such talent, he should just obediently cultivate 4 Dan of Hongtian 9 Dan formula. Yet, he chooses to flip through other manuals. Is he just trying to seek for something thrilling? With one look, one could tell he is an unrealistic fellow. The good impression that he holds towards Zhongxian disappears without a trace. Putting on a show just to obtain the fleeting praises of the crowd, after a cold harumph, he realizes that Zhongxian is just casually flipping through without taking a careful look at them. Elder Mo's eyebrows knit even closer together and he feels a little disgusted with him. If one were to study those manual closer, even though they are being unrealistic, they would still obtain some knowledge on them. However, this fellow simply casually flips through it and given the speed he flips at, even Elder Mo himself is unable to look through the contents properly. If so, what can a lad who had just reached Fighter 4 Dan see? Now, he is truly putting on a show to obtain the fleeting praises of the crowd. The Academy's culture is really degenerating, getting worse with each passing generation. After those words, he shuts his eyes, refusing to bother with this unrealistic fellow anymore. I'm done. His pace of browsing is extremely fast. He is able to finish flipping through a normal manual in just 1 or 2 breaths. In 2 hours, he finished browsing through all of the cultivation manuals and thousands of identical books had appeared in the library of Heaven's Path. Time to return to assess them. Knowing that his aim has been achieved, he smiles and walks towards the outside without hesitation. You aren't going to copy any notes? Seeing him leaving empty-handed, Elder Mo couldn't resist asking. Even if he is unrealistic, he should at least copy the secret manual so that he can analyze it after returning to his living quarters. Coming and leaving empty-handed, are you coming here to play? It's okay, I am actually just taking a casual look. Unsure about what the other party is thinking about, Zhongxian smiles and takes his leave. Taking a casual look? Frivolous. The Academy should punish this fellow. How can such a frivolous person be a teacher? Elder Mo waves his hand in anger. Cultivation manuals are the core of every cultivator and every cultivator should hold some respect towards them. However, this fellow only came to take a look and returns back after casually flipping through them. His behavior is unacceptable. Looks like he should have a talk with the principal to deal with these teachers who are sullying the culture of the Academy. Returning back to his living quarters, Zhongxian takes out pen and papers and flips through the Hongtian 9 Dan Formula 4 Dan manual to copy down the correct portions of it. Then, he takes out another book and copies down the correct portions as well. After flipping through a few of them, Zhongxian rubs his temples. It is actually quite troublesome and tiring to flip through a few thousand books like that. It isn't as simple as he thought it would be. Just when he is thinking about how he could hasten his pace, his mind suddenly jolts again. The thousands of book that was just compiled in the library of Heaven's Path crumple and slowly merge as one. Wang. The few thousand books merge together completely with a crisp sound to form a single book. There isn't any name on the book. Zhongxian casually flips through it. This is the compilation of the correct roots in the few thousand secret manuals. After taking a look at it, Zhongxian's face flushes red from excitement. Previously, he was still troubled by how he could find the correct route out of a few thousand of books. It would have been an arduous task, taking a long period of time. Never in his dreams would he expect that the library would compile it automatically. This book, there isn't a single flaw in it. The Nameless Book is the compilation of all of the correct cultivation route, and there isn't a single flaw in it. The contents of it is no longer Hongtian 9 Dan formula or any one of the individual manual that was compiled into it. It could be said to be something no one has ever seen before. Since it is the correct method chosen and compiled by the Library of Heaven's Path, let's call it Heaven's Path Divine Art. A thought flashes through his mind and he decides on the name of the nameless manual. Wang. As though sensing his thoughts, the empty cover trembles and 4 words appear on it. Heaven's Path Divine Art. Chapter 16. Cleansing Muscles and Bones. Let me give it a try. After obtaining a cultivation technique without any flaws, Zhongxian doesn't hesitate to follow the method recorded in the Heaven's Path Divine Art and starts to meditate. The pause on his body widens as he absorbs spirit energy from the air into his body. Fighter 4 Dan. 1 Dan Jushi, 2 Dan Dantian, 3 Dan Zhenqi, 4 Dan Pigu. Jushi realm, cultivators would learn innate breathing and sensing of spirit in the air. Also, they would gain the ability to look into their body and control the flow of spirit energy in their body with their mind. Dantian realm, the opening up of a cultivator's Dantian to allow it to hold spirit energy as well as to reform his body, turning a normal human into a true fighter. Zhenqi realm, the gathering of the spirit energy in the Dantian to create Zhenqi. Pigu realm, the Zhenqi-filled Dantian will overflow and enrich one's body, causing the cultivator's physical body to become powerful. The capabilities of their organs will also be strengthened, thus turning them into true experts. The first 3 dans of a fighter are the building of foundations. Only at the 4 dan does one the result of one's cultivation truly reflects on one's body, causing one to stray away from illnesses and become stronger. The cultivation method of Hongtian 9 Dan manual is to make use of the Zhenqi overflowing from the Dantian to nourish one's body, thus reforming and tempering one's bones, muscles, tendons, and skin. However, the Heaven's Path Divine Art is different. It uses the spirit energy from the surrounding to nourish one's body while having the Zhenqi in one's body overflow to the other parts of the body at the same time. Gugu. The stream of spirit energy flows through his veins towards his entire body. The Zhenqi would mend and fill up the incomplete parts as it flows through his veins. Geji. It didn't take long for the infusion of both spirit energy and Zhenqi to strengthen his bones and muscles. It feels as though it has been tempered with concentrated fire as it turns clear, emitting a warm glow. Boom. After the Zhenqi circulates around his body for an unknown number of times, his body suddenly jolts and he feels as though he has broken through a certain bottleneck. A surge of relaxation gushes through his body. Previously, his body feels as though it has been bound by some shackles, but now, his entire body feels light and he has perfect control over every single motion of his. It feels as though he has been broken through his cocoon to be reborn as a butterfly. Fighter 4 Dan Pigu realm. I have finished cultivating in this realm. Opening his eyes, Zhongxian is still in a state of disbelief. The sign of breaking through the Pigu realm is the destruction of the shackles of one's body, allowing one to ascend into greater heights. How long has he been training? 2 hours. 4 hours. Pungent. Curious, he looks at his body and realizes that there is a layer of filth on the surface of his skin. Pigu realm is the nourishment of one's body using Zhenqi, expelling the impurities within one's body and cleansing one's muscles and bones, thus reforming their body. From birth, humans would ingest all kinds of food for survival. As a result, they would accumulate more and more impurities in their body. In the Pigu realm, through the nourishment of Zhenqi, one cleanses their body of impurities and only then are they able to break through the shackles of their body and return back to nature. I have long heard of the Pigu realm, but I have never seen anyone who can expel so much impurities. Smelling the pungent smell from his body, Zhongxian couldn't take it anymore. He grabs a pail and cleans himself while muttering under his breath. Fig Her 4 Dan Pigu Realm is the cleansing of one's muscles and bones. It is already not bad for one to strengthen their body just by a small bit in one sitting. He has never heard of a person expelling so much impurities that their entire body would stink from it. Very quickly, he finished cleaning himself. At this moment, Zhongxian suddenly realizes that his body is as clear as a jade and as smooth as a mirror. All of the scars which he accumulated from his previous training sessions have disappeared without a trace. Right now, he is just like a newborn infant, perhaps even smoother than a newborn infant. My Zhenqi. Surprised by the changes in his body, his attention turns to his dantian. His entire body trembles. The murky zhenqi that was in his dantian previously has turned to become as clear and water, and it is emitting refreshing fragrance. Without a doubt, it is definitely superior zhenqi. Not only is my body enhanced, even the quality of my zhenqi has improved. This Heaven's Path divine art is too powerful. Zhongxian is taken aback. To break through Pigu realm, others have to continually nourish their body for at least a few years. However, he took less than 4 hours to break through the realm directly. Not only so, the quality of his zhenqi has been refined. Exactly what kind of secret manual has the Library of Heaven's Path created? This is way too powerful. Let me test my strength. Upon breaking through Pigu realm, one would reach Fighter 5 Dan Dingli. The moment a cultivator steps into this realm, they will possess 1 ding of strength. He walks over to the strength measuring rock pillar, which is just a few dozen meters away from the dormitory. This kind of strength measuring rock pillar can be found around the academy so as to allow the students to measure their strength at any time and anywhere. Upon reaching Fighter 5 Dan Dingli, one would possess 1 ding of strength, which is around 1,000 kilograms. This kind of strength already exceeds the limits of an ordinary human and is on par with horses and bulls. After practicing the Heaven's Path divine art, Zhongxian's body has been reformed and he has broken through the Pigu realm. This is an opportunity for him to test how much strength the possesses. Will it be like in the rumors, that he would possess 1 ding of strength? Gathering and controlling his breath, the sole of the feet clutches onto the ground. Suddenly, his knees spring forth and his entire body immediately takes on the shape of a giant bow while his arm bursts forth from him like an arrow. Peng! His fist strikes on the stone pillar and a glint of light flow on it. 5 ding. A number appears on it. How is this possible? Zhongxian narrows his eyes and a dumbfounded look covers his entire face. Is this for real? For a normal Dingli primary stage, one would possess 1 ding of strength. In the intermediate stage, one would possess 2 ding of strength. In the advanced stage, 3 ding of strength, and in the pinnacle, 4 ding of strength. Yet, despite barely breaking through the Pigu realm to Dingli realm, he actually possesses 5 ding of strength. What is going on? Isn't this too exaggerated? It must be due to the nourishment of my body by the Heaven's Path divine art and the superior zhenqi in my body. After a short moment, Zhongxian recovers from the shock and infers. He is very clear that he isn't a genius. The only explanation for it is the Heaven's Path divine art which he has just cultivated with. Not only does this cultivation technique temper and reforms his physical body and cleanses his zhenqi, raising it to superior quality, it also increases his strength significantly, thus granting him the strength beyond that of Dingli pinnacle expert despite just reaching the Dingli realm. Fearsome. There is only a few esteemed teacher in the academy who reached Fighter 5 Dan. In the academy, only some of the higher level teachers possess the strength of a Fighter 5 Dan Dingli realm. People like Cao Xiong and him could never hope to reach such heights. Now that I have reached this level, I should go and look for the cultivation technique for 5 Dan. While his strength soars rapidly, a problem arises. The multitude of 4 Dan cultivation techniques that he flipped through in the Teacher Compendium Pavilion previously are useless now. If he wants to continue cultivating, he has to look for 5 Dan cultivation techniques. Right now, it isn't too late. The Teacher Compendium Pavilion shouldn't be closed yet. Scratching his head, Zhongxian walks over the Compendium Pavilion once more. In order to prevent people from getting greedy and hasty in their training, the academy imposed a rule that one can only view cultivation techniques that correspond to the level of their cultivation. It didn't take long for Zhongxian to arrive at the compendium pavilion once more. "Why are you here again?" Seeing that it's the same guy from a moment ago, the custodian, Elder Mo, frowns. This impractical fellow just left the pavilion not long ago. Why is he back again? "Elder Mo, I would like to view the cultivation technique for 5 Dan. Zhongxian is a little awkward. He can't possibly say that he broke through after leaving for just a short moment. If he were to say that, the other fellow would either kill him or kidnap him to examine him like a lab rat. There isn't much of a change in Zhenqi between Pigu realm and Dingli realm. As long he doesn't manipulate his Zhenqi, it is difficult for even experts to tell the difference. Elder Mo may be strong, but it is inconceivable to him that this youth might have broken to greater heights in the short moment he was gone. 5 Dan cultivation technique? What do you want it for?" Elder Mo's face darkens. His final sliver of appreciation towards his fellow disappears. He didn't copy any notes on the 4 Dan cultivation technique and didn't try to cultivate it. Yet, he is back now to look at the 5 Dan? What kind of joke is this? "Elder Mo, it is like this. Today, I accepted a student and his parent asked me some questions about 5 Dan cultivation. I was unable to answer it, causing him to look down on him. Thus, I would like to take a look and derive an answer to it. This way, I would be able to deal with these questions in the future." Zhongxian has already thought of an excuse beforehand. Some parents are indeed troublesome to deal with. Hearing this explanation, Elder Mo nods his head. With a solemn expression, he says, "You can take a look, but do not cultivate them by any means. If you try to cultivate 5 Dan without even breaking through 4 Dan, even deities would be unable to save you when you go berserk." "Yes, I understand that." Zhongxian hurriedly replies. "All right, enter." Elder Mo waves his hand and closes his eyes. The 5 Dan cultivation technique are on the very last row. "Yes." Zhongxian hurriedly enters. Hypocritical. Vain. After entering, Elder Mo adds 2 more words to his evaluation of Zhongxian. Chapter 17. Assassination. So what if the parents ask about it? You are the lowest level teacher. It is normal that you can't answer their questions. So, in order to put on a show, you specially came here to view the 5 Dan cultivation technique. If this isn't being hypocritical and vain, what is it? Tomorrow, I will look for the principal and have this unrealistic fellow expelled. Scoffing coldly in his heart, Old Mo's mind is resolute. Leaving such a vain fellow who doesn't cultivate properly in the academy will just sully the culture of the academy. Zhongxian doesn't know that the 2 meetings with Elder Mo have placed him in the expulsion list of the latter. If he were to know, he would have no idea whether he should burst into laughter or weep in tears. Those words that he said are only excuses. In reality, his cultivation has reached such a level. He can't possibly stop training due to the lack of cultivation technique. Very quickly, he found the very last row of the cultivation technique section. Even the most famous and powerful teacher in the academy is Fighter 5 Dan. The moment one breaks through into the 6 Dan Pishua realm, they would automatically become an elder in the academy. This is only the teacher compendium pavilion, so there aren't any records on the 6 Dan cultivation techniques. Thus, the 5 Dan cultivation techniques are placed on the very last shelf. There are significantly less 5 Dan manuals than 4 Dan. There are around 2,000 to 3,000 cultivation technique secret manuals on the 4 Dan, whereas there are only 1,000 on the 5 Dan. However, it is also a natural occurrence when one thinks about it. No matter what it is, the higher one climbs, the scarcer the resources. Although the academy has been present for a long time, there are definitely significantly less 5 Dan than 4 Dan in its entire history. As a result, the cultivation techniques and notes they leave behind would be fewer as well. Shaking his head, he decided not to contemplate over such matters. Zhongxian casually takes out a book and flips through it. Around an hour later, the 1,000 cultivation technique secret manuals have been browsed through and the Library of Heaven's Path has compiled corresponding books to the secret manuals. After receiving what he wants, Zhongxian smiles faintly and bids Elder Mo farewell before walking into the distance. Seeing how he is randomly flipping and viewing the books, not even stopping in the midst of it, Elder Mo can't help but chastise him yet again in his mind. Returning back to his living quarters, Zhongxian follows what he did previously and searches for the correct phrases and paragraphs within the 1,000 books. As he expected, not too long later, the library compiles the 1,000 books into a single one. This time, the book isn't nameless and the 4 big words Heaven's Path Divine Art is written on it. He starts to cultivate again. Fighter 5 Dan Dingli realm is an extension of the Pigu realm. The purpose of this realm is simple, it is to temper the zhenqi of the cultivator to his body. The difference in strength between each stage in Dingli realm is mainly due to the level of compatibility between one's zhenqi and their body. The greater their compatibility, the more strength one is able to exert. Reading the cultivation method for the Dingli realm in the Heaven's Path Divine Art, Zhongxian focuses his attention. He carefully controls the crystal-clear zhenqi in his dantian to slowly flow in his body, going at a fixed rhythm to allow it to merge completely with his body. The Heaven's Path Divine Art is indeed worthy of being a cultivation technique compiled by the advantages of over a few thousand secret manuals. The efficiency of the cultivation method is indeed one to behold. His zhenqi and muscles swiftly merge together as one. The strength of his body and the compatibility of his zhenqi soars up exponentially. Dingli Realm Primary Stage, Dingli Realm Intermediate Stage, Dingli Realm Advanced Stage, Dingli Realm Pinnacle. Boom. After 4 hours, his body jolts again. Zhongxian reopens his eyes. His eyes are filled with disbelief. This Fighter 5 Dan Pinnacle? Initially, he thought he would take a long period cultivating in 5 Dan. Never in his dreams would he possibly imagine that he could reach the pinnacle in 4 hours through the Heaven's Path Divine Art. To his previous self, cultivation is as difficult as trying to ascend the heavens. Yet, to Zhongxian who is practicing the Heaven's Path Divine Art, it is as easy as eating and drinking. Just by half a night worth of effort, he rose from Fighter 3 Dan Zhenqi realm to Fighter 5 Dan Dingli realm pinnacle. This is too exaggerated. Furthermore, if it wasn't for the fact that he didn't know the cultivation method for 6 Dan, unaware of which acupoint he should break through, he might have already successfully broken through to become a 6 Dan Pishua realm expert. In 6 Dan Pishua realm, one opens up all of the blocked acupoints in their body. For every acupoint broken through, one's zhenqi would become richer and one's prowess will rise. It is said that there are 108 acupoints in the human body. However, only 72 of these can be opened and there is an order to opening it. Everyone's body is different, thus everyone would require a different sequence in breaking through each of them to obtain the best results out of it. If one is unable to find the correct sequence, they could very possibly end up only opening 3 to 4 acupoints and be stuck there for the rest of their lives. This is just like cleaning the silt by a river. It has to be cleaned gradually from the upper stream to the lower stream. If one were to start at the center and clean towards the upper and lower stream, not only will the river not be cleaned thoroughly, it might even result in a blockage, causing one to be unable to progress further. The same logic goes for breaking through one's acupoints as well. If one doesn't find the ideal sequence, the other acupoints might get blocked and for the rest of their lives, they would be unable to open it. Thus, without a cultivation technique, Zhongxian doesn't dare to try to cultivate further. However, he isn't anxious. It is already unheard of to break through 2 great realms in a single night. He is already very satisfied with the results. Unless required, it is best for me to not to reveal my level of cultivation. As a transcender, he has read many books and watched many shows. He knows that possessing a treasure itself is a crime. He is the worst teacher in the entire academy. Yet, in a night, he suddenly gains the strength of a Fighter 5 Dan Pinnacle. If others were to find out, won't they all rush to him? Thus, it is best for him to not tell anyone about him reaching Dingli Realm Pinnacle. The more confidential it is, the better it is for him. Let me see how much strength would I hold this time. After making a decision, Zhongxian walks over to the strength measuring rock pillar. While other people only possess 1 ding of strength in their Dingli primary stage, he possessed 5 ding. If so, how much strength would he hold now that he has reached the pinnacle? Peng. Light flows through the rock pillar and numbers appear on it. 8 ding. 8 ding of strength. That is almost the strength of a Pishua realm expert who has opened up 4 acupoints. Zhong Xian's eyes lit up. A normal Dingli pinnacle cultivator would possess 4 ding of strength. After which, for each acupoint they break through, their strength would increase by 1 ding. Despite just being at Dingli pinnacle, he possesses the strength of 8 ding, putting him on the same level as an expert who has broken through 4 acupoints. As expected of the Heaven's Path divine art, incredible. Zhong Xian is quite happy. After training for such a long period of time, he intends to find something to eat then go to sleep. However, his ears suddenly twitch. Why would someone be here at such a time? Zhong Xian frowns. Due to an advancement in his cultivation, his hearing and sight have improved tremendously. He is able to clearly perceive the sound of someone hiding somewhere not too far from where he is, staring fixedly at his living quarters. Looks like he is surveying my room. He probably has yet to detect my presence. At this moment, Zhong Xian isn't at his room but behind a strength-measuring rock pillar which is a distance away from the dormitory. After measuring his strength, he has been suppressing his breathing, thus the other party has yet to notice his presence. Let's see who's the one finding trouble with me. He didn't expect that someone would want to deal with him right after he is done cultivating. The doubts in his mind grow. Rummaging through the memories of his previous self, although he doesn't have much accomplishment, there hasn't been a scenario where someone sneaked onto in the night to deal with him. No matter who he is, I mustn't let him identify me. Just when he was about to meet the other party, a thought suddenly flashes through his mind. The entire academy knows that he is a fighter 3 Dan Zhenqi realm trash. If he were to appear at this moment as a 5 Dan pinnacle, the other party would definitely be scared to death. Furthermore, if the news were to spread out, there would surely be quite a few person who would look into him. Thus, no matter who the other party is, Zhong Xian mustn't allow him to identify him. At this moment, he suddenly recalls the numerous movies he has watched back in his previous life. Thus, he tears away a fabric from his sleeves and covers his face. Who? After finishing with his preparations, making use of the darkness of the night, Zhong Xian gradually creeps towards the other party with light footsteps. Although he has just broken through and he has never studied any footwork, the cultivation technique he is training with is the Heaven's Path divine art which grants him superb control over his body. Not to mention, he is also very familiar with his surroundings, so the other party didn't notice him even when he is just 10 meters behind him. At such a proximity, he could clearly see the black suit donned by the other party. His face is also covered, so it is impossible for him to make out his identity as well. Lad, if you must blame it for your daring guts to dare to lay your hands on our young mistress. Hiding behind a large tree, Zhong Xian stares at the silhouette before him as the mutterings of the latter vaguely drift to his ears. That voice sounds familiar. Zhong Xian's eyebrows knit tightly together. Zhong Xian is sure that he had heard this voice before. However, he has difficulty recalling exactly when and where he heard it. Who? Just as he is trying his best to recall whether it is the memory of his previous self or after he has transcended, the silhouette before him flickers and gradually moves towards his dormitory. At the same time, with a flick of his wrist, a cold gleam shines and a sharp dagger appears on his palm. Chapter 18. Scammed you want to kill me? Seeing the other party whipping out a knife, Zhong Xian raises his eyebrows. It is fortunate that he has been cultivating and not sleeping. Otherwise, when the other party approaches him silently like this, won't he be killed for sure? Let me first ascertain who this fellow is. Zhong Xian knows that conducting this kind of night assault would mean that he is not an individual. Perhaps, there could even be an organization behind him. If he doesn't accurately identify the one trying to murder him, even if he were to kill this assassin, there might be more coming for his life in the future. If he doesn't dig out the organization behind the assassination, he wouldn't have to dream of sleeping peacefully anymore. Who is it? Just when Zhong Xian is pondering how he should force the man before him to confess the organization backing him, he hears a hushed voice. Unknowingly, the black-clothed man grasping the dagger is already standing at proximity to him. Zhong Xian has never tracked anyone before. Upon seeing the other party whip out a dagger, he got nervous for a moment and leaked out his breath, causing the other party to notice his presence. To be noticed so quickly, Zhong Xian frowns. Just when he is about to rush forward to duel with the man before him, a thought flashed through his mind and a brilliant idea pops out. I am here to kill Zhong Xian, that useless teacher. Who are you? Suppressing his tone so as to not be identified, Zhong Xian declares. Since the other party is here to kill him, he would be able to confuse him by saying that he is here for the same purpose. You're here to kill him? The black-clothed man is taken aback. However, looking at how Zhong Xian conceals his face and his sneaky attitude, he couldn't help but trust his words slightly. Indeed. The academy's worst teacher will only bring harm to the students if left alone. Zhong Xian couldn't help but turn red upon talking about himself. Oh, then you do it. I will help you keep a lookout, the black-clothed man says. Keng. A uncomprehending look appears on Zhong Xian. He tries to push the responsibility to him. I think it would be better for you to do it. Anyway, we are here for the same motive, so it doesn't matter who does it. You do it. Actually, I have no intentions of killing him. I only wanted to punish him. However, if he were to die, that would be for the best. The black-clothed man urges him on. Punish him? Zhong Xian is a little confused. Punish him? Then why is he holding a dagger? He couldn't resist asking, how do you want to punish him? That fellow dares to do something disrespectful to our young mistress. I intend to chop off his thing and turn him into a eunuch. The black-clothed man proclaims furiously. Hearing those words filled with vile intentions, Zhong Xian could only feel a breeze at his crotch and shivered unconsciously in fear. The hell? If I were to sleep peacefully tonight, I would probably be qualified to serve the emperor after this. Who the hell are you, for you to be so vicious? Disrespectful to your young mistress? Zhong Xian tries to recall the memories of his previous self and after his reincarnation, but he doesn't seem to have gotten into any physical relationships with any young mistresses. That Zhong Xian, I have only heard that he is unqualified as a teacher. I have never heard of him bullying females. What is this about? Zhong Xian couldn't resist asking. That fellow is an animal with a human skin. What teacher? He is a beast. Our young mistress. Forget it, the more I think about it, the more furious I get. Untold rage could be felt from the suppressed voice of the black-clothed man. Zhong Xian could only see stars. So what the hell is it about, for you to insult me as a beast? What did I do to your young mistress? Besides that, who the hell is your young mistress? It is one thing if she is pretty, but if she is ugly, isn't it too much for such a reputation to be forced on me? Why do you want to kill him? After his insults, the black-clothed man looks over. Me? Zhong Xian didn't expect that the other party would question him. He is stunned for a moment before clenching his jaw and answering, I can't accept his actions of bullying women. You know that he bullies women? Who did he bully? The black-clothed man is alarmed. He. Zhong Xian harumphs and says, there is no reason for me to answer your questions. That is true. Since we both have the same goals in mind, you go first. Seeing that the other party is unwilling to reveal anything, although there are doubts in his mind, he chooses to ask no further and waves his hand to gesture Zhong Xian to go ahead. It would be better if you go first. If I were to strike first, he would be dead before you can castrate him. It would be better for you to castrate him first before I kill him, Zhong Xian replies. That. The black-clothed man starts to hesitate. He looks at Zhong Xian in doubt. He has started to get suspicious. How could it be possible for such a coincidence to occur? Just when he intends to castrate Zhong Xian, another person appears to assassinate him. If it wasn't for his fear of the strength of the other party, he would have struck him unconscious by now. Why? You don't trust me? If I don't want to kill him, why would I sneak here in the middle of the night? Noticing his doubts, Zhong Xian tries to dispel them. Hearing those words, the black-clothed man hesitates for a moment before nodding his head in agreement. That's true. It is already late at night. If the masked man isn't here to kill Zhong Xian, why would he be here for? It isn't because I don't trust you. Since our goals align with one another, let's go together. The black-clothed man replies after pondering for a moment. He is still a little suspicious of the fellow in front of him. You are still way too careful. Rest easy, I have basic principles as a human. However, since you do not trust me, Zhongxian doesn't drag on the conversation and gestures, let's go together, after which, he charges forward. Fighter 5 Dan Pinnacle. Seeing his movement, the black-clothed man instantly identifies his level of cultivation. He exerts his qinggong and follows closely behind. Seeing the black-clothed man following behind him, Zhongxian immediately turns around to take a look. Boom! The Library of Heaven's Path jolts and a book appears. The skill the other party exerted to follow him is equal to executing a battle technique. As long as one were to use a skill, the Library of Heaven's Path would be able to compile a book on his flaws and thus, his background would be revealed. Zhongxian glances at the book. He only sees 2 words Yarohan written on the cover. This name sounds so familiar. Where have I heard of it? Zhongxian stares at the front cover for a moment before flipping over to the first page. Yarohan, the butler of Bayou City Lord Residence. Fighter 6 Dan Pishua Primary Stage, 8 acupoints opened. It's him. Seeing the words Bayou City, Zhongxian immediately recalls the identity of the man before him. Isn't this the butler from Bayou City who rushed over to threaten him when he accepted Zhao Ya as his student? No wonder his voice and name sound so familiar. Just that. This means that the young mistress that he mentioned refers to Zhao Ya. What did I do to her for you to make the journey here just to castrate me? To dare to malign me? Even though you are stronger than me, I must teach you a lesson. The more he thinks about it, the angrier he gets. If it is something his previous self did, since he has transcended over to take his place, even though he would feel wronged, he would admit it. However, the crux is that he didn't do anything. For Yarohan to label him with this crime when he did nothing, he is simply too vile. As such thoughts race through his mind, he continues to glance through the list. Cultivation technique, white jade circulation technique, battle techniques, mystical diagram palm, expert, mystical diagram fist, expert. Flaws, 16 aspects. Number 1, his Ming Men is at his bottoms and his skills are unable to guard against attacks directed at the point. Number 2. Number 3. Just as how it did previously, the book records all the flaws on this fellow. Having broken through 8 acupoints, this means his current strength is at 12 ding. If Zhongxian were to try to match him in a direct combat, he would definitely not be a match for him. However, so what if you are in Pishua realm? So what if you possess 12 ding of strength? If I don't teach you a lesson today, I wouldn't be called Zhongxian. Who? At this point, Zhongxian stops abruptly. What's wrong? Seeing Zhongxian stopping abruptly, the black-clothed man asks with a confused look. Look, an UFO. Zhongxian casually points. UFO? What is an UFO? The black-clothed man is taken aback and hurriedly turns around to take a look. This action reveals the Ming Men on his bottom to Zhongxian. Incomprehension plagues Yarohan. He knows of butterfly, ultimatum and spy. However, what exactly is an UFO? Butterfly who die ultimatum tong die spy gen die UFO, flying saucer, fei die is pronounced as dia. Go to hell. What Zhongxian has been waiting for is this opportunity. Without any hesitation whatsoever, he sends a kick filled with his wrath towards his bottom. Peng. Before the black-clothed man Yarohan could react, his Ming Men is kicked on. He flies forward and crashes head-on with a boulder not too far away. Blood trickles down from the wound on his head. Since you are here to castrate me, should I castrate you right now? The more he thinks about it, the angrier he gets. Zhongxian rushes forward and sits on the other party's body. He sends a couple of fists onto his face. What Pishua realm expert? What 12 ding expert? They are strong. If you were to find their Ming Men and exploit their flaws, an unexpected assault will still lead to their death. You. Apparently, Yarohan didn't expect the fellow who wanted to teach Zhongxian a lesson along with him would suddenly attack him frenziedly. What's worse, his Mingmen is struck, causing his entire body to go stiff. He couldn't retaliate even if he wanted to. His body shivers from anger. Didn't we agree to deal with Zhongxian together? The heck? Where is your trust? Where are your basic principles as a human? Besides, no matter what, you are a Fighter 5 Dan Dingley Pinnacle Master, an expert among experts. You should have some demeanor even in the midst of a battle. To shamelessly lie to me and launch a secret assault before riding on my face. What about battle techniques? What about crossing blows? What about your cultivation technique? Even gangsters on the street don't fight this way. He only feels wave after wave of pain on his face. Yarohan is about to go insane. At this moment, he finally knows that he have been scammed by the masked man. Furthermore, it is the worst kind of scams. Qinggong literally translated as the art of lightweight. It refers to footwork which allows one to tread lightly, increasing one's jumping ability, running speed, and dodging skills. Chapter 19. Framing. After a violent thrashing, Zhongxian finally feels the rage in his heart subsiding slightly. Lowering his head to take a look, Yarohan's mask has already fallen off in the midst of the bashing and his face is warped from taking his hits. Probably, even his own mother would be unable to recognize him in his current state. Kung. Now that anger is no longer clouding his mind, Zhongxian immediately grasps his current situation. This fellow is the butler of Bayou City Lord, as well as the uncle of my disciple. It is still okay for me to teach him a lesson, but I should not kill him by any means. No matter what, this fellow is still Zhao Yue's Uncle Yao. If Zhongxian were to really kill him, won't the disciple he just admitted go to waste? There would surely be zero possibility for reconciliation if that were to happen. Besides, Bayou City is reputed as the third biggest city in Tianxian Kingdom. To be able to become the city lord of such a city, Zhao Yue's father should be rather powerful and holds great influence. If his butler was killed and he chooses to pursue this matter, it might be possible for him to investigate onto himself. If so, he would be in deep trouble. Being a newcomer in this world, he has yet to create a firm foothold for him to stand on, so it is best for him to keep a low profile. I mustn't let me become suspicious of me, the thought flashes through his mind. Since Yarohan cannot be killed, then Zhongxian have to let him go alive. For him to get beaten him in the midst of an assault against Zhongxian would definitely be the first person he would be suspicious of. Oh right, I have the perfect scapegoat for this. If he didn't come looking for trouble today, I wouldn't have thought of him. A person flashes through Zhongxian's mind. That person is the man who was beside Shun by Yu earlier today, the one who kept mocking him, Shong Bin. Anyway, that fellow is the grandson of Elder Shong Chen. If Zhongxian were to push the blame to him, Yarohan wouldn't dare to take revenge even if he wanted to. In fact, it would be better if Yarohan were to take revenge. The two of them would then bite viciously onto one another. At this point, Zhongxian stares at the distorted face of Yarohan and deepens his voice. I have a grudge with Zhongxian. Earlier today, he got on my nerves and so, I intended to teach him a lesson in the night. However, if he were to be castrated by you, she would definitely suspect that I am the one who did it and a misunderstanding would arise between us. Blame this all on the fact that you met me today, as well as your untimely arrival. Only now did Yarohan know why he was thrashed. He wants to retort, but his mouth is swollen like a pair of sausages, making it impossible for him to talk. Scram. Seeing that the other party has comprehended his words, Zhongxian doesn't continue speaking. He stands up and kicks Yarohan's body a dozen meters away. Damn it. Hurling vulgarities towards the other party in his mind, Yarohan knows that he is in a disadvantageous situation today. Gritting his teeth, he turns away and leaves. At the same time, he carves the two main characteristics of the attacker onto his mind. Firstly, the person who beat him up had an encounter this Zhongxian earlier in the day and was incensed by his words or actions. Secondly, the relationship between him and Zhongxian should be love rivals. The woman who they are pursuing has a Bai in her name. As long as he remembers this two distinctive features, It is an easy task for him to find out who the fellow who laid his hands on him is. Only after seeing Yarrow Han disappear into the distance does Zhongxian heave a sigh of relief. He pats away the dirt on his clothes and returns back to the dormitory. This event is a great fright to him. If he didn't stay up to cultivate tonight, it would be hard to tell what would have happened. However, at least the danger is averted temporarily. The key to survival in this world power. Sitting on the bed in his dormitory, Zhongxian mutters to himself. If his cultivation didn't soar today, even if he knew Yarrow Han's weaknesses, he wouldn't have been a match for him. The one to suffer in the end will be him. Thus, the urgent matter at hand is for him to swiftly raise his strength. The stronger he is, the better it is. He slowly drifts into the world of dream with his mind filled with sentimentality. The next day, Zhongxian wakes up the moment the sky lights up. Although he has barely slept for 2 hours, not to mention how hard he had worked the previous night, he still feels refreshed without the slightest fatigue. Time to start lessons, he mutters as he puts on his clothes. After which, he walks to his classroom with large strides. It didn't take long for him to arrive at his classroom. The moment he pushes the door open, a plump youth welcomes him enthusiastically. Zhong Laroche, you are here. Look, I have already finished cleaning up the room. He is the final student Zhongxian accepted yesterday, the fatty Yuan Dao. Zhongxian didn't expect that this fellow would be the first to arrive, given how he threatened him yesterday. Furthermore, he even cleaned the classroom spick and span. Not bad. Zhongxian nods his head in approval. Hehe, since teacher said that I did not bad, is there any reward for my effort? Like some martial art or cultivation technique and such. You can casually reward me with 3 or 5 of them. Hearing Zhongxian's acknowledgement, a wide smile appears on Fatty's face. This fellow is the type who would go too far when you give him some leeway. Wait by the side first. I will start the lesson after the other students arrive. Zhongxian gestures. The first to arrive is Fatty. Unexpectedly, the second to arrive is the student whom he won from the bet, Liu Yang. However, Liu Yang's attitude isn't as good as Fatty's. Indignation spells on his face as he gazes at Zhongxian with a look of contempt. In his opinion, Zhongxian only won the bet by luck, and it is a torture for a genius like him to come under the tutelage of a teacher of such horrendous standards. The third to arrive is the youth who specializes in the way of the spear, Zheng Yang. After Zhongxian pointed out the problem in Zheng Yang's spear, his strength rose by more than a single fold. As a result, Zheng Yang holds great confidence towards his teacher, and out of the current few students who acknowledged Zhongxian, he is the only one who came to him on his own free will. The fourth to arrive is Wang Ying. The shy lass couldn't help but blush upon catching sight of the other students when she enters and immediately hides at the corner. I should be able to solve the problem of my body today. Zhao Wei opens her eyes. Yesterday, the academy's worst teacher claimed that he is capable of solving her problem. After returning to her dormitory, she felt lost and worried, causing her to roll about her bed, only falling asleep after a long time later. Regardless of whether the other party is telling the truth or lying, there would surely be a conclusion by the end of today. When such a thought strikes her, she gargles her mouth, puts on her clothes and leaves the room swiftly. As the daughter of Bayou City Lord and one of the top 10 scorers of the entrance examinations, she is granted a personal residence, unlike the shared dormitory of the other students. There are many rooms in the residence, and the butler, Uncle Yarrow, stays in one of the rooms not too far away from hers. Uncle Yarrow, I'm going to class. Seeing no movements in the room after shouting, Zhao Wei prepares to walk off. Young mistress, wait for me. I will go with you. A shout echoes from beyond the door. The door opens and Yarrow Han walks out. Looking at his face, Zhao Wei is taken aback. Uncle Yarrow, you. What happened? Zhao Wei is stunned to see Yarrow Han's swollen face and the dark rings around his eyes. In a single night, the dignified Yarrow Han has been disfigured. If it wasn't for the familiar voice, she wouldn't have known who he is. Oh, I accidentally hit myself after getting too absorbed in my training yesterday. Yarrow Han explains. Who would hit themselves in the midst of their training? Is it possible for anyone to find an even worse excuse than that? Uncle Yao, what happened? Who did it? No, I have to tell my dad. Zhao Ya exclaims furiously. Young mistress, don't bother yourself with this. This is my own problem. I can resolve it myself. You better hurry to your class first. I want to see how the teacher you acknowledged is like. If his standards are exactly like what the rumors dictate, I will immediately report this to the city lord and have the Hongqian Academy get a new teacher for you. Yarohan waves his hand imposingly. However, as his movements are too big, his wounds are pulled on and cold sweat drenches his back. Fine. Seeing how adamant Yarohan is against her interference in the matter, Zhao Ya doesn't touch on any further on the subject. The two of them walk towards Zhong Xian's classroom. Uncle Yao, given how severely wounded you are, I think you should go back and rest first. I can attend the lesson by myself, there is no need for you to send me. After walking a short distance, Zhao Ya noticed how his entire body is trembling and drenched in sweat. She couldn't help but say these words. Yesterday, Zhong Xian didn't pull back his blows even in the least. Despite applying medicine on the wounds and resting for a few hours, his wounds are still severe. It is quite incredible that he is even able to walk. Young mistress, the city lord has tasked me to find a good teacher for you before we set off. Yet, you had to choose such a fellow. How can I face the city lord in the future? Yarohan says. No matter what, I want to expose the true face of that fellow before you and prove to you that he is a fraud. Only our pure and innocent young mistress would fall for his tricks. Given those standards of his, it is impossible for him to recruit a second student. When you finally witness that there are no other students in his class, you would know that. Jia. The door to the classroom is pushed open, revealing its interior. Within the classroom sits Zhong Xian and his 4 new students. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.